Chapter 1077. Kunming was located on a small plateau. It was the city with the smallest annual temperature difference in the country. It was as warm as spring all year round, so it was also known as the Spring City. However, spring was still the most beautiful season in this city that was blessed by spring. In front of the lecture hall, by the lakeside of Lake Chui, red-billed seagulls from Siberia adorned the charming scenery of this city. On the streets of the city, flowers were blooming. People walked slowly on the streets. In front of the tea house, a lazy puppy wagged its tail, as if it had become the only waiter to greet the guests. The pace of this city was not fast. What was fast were the tourists coming and going. Other than the brightly lit Golden Horse and Blue Chicken House, the most lively place was the Kunming train station, which had the most traffic. Why isn't Papa back yet? In the temporary waiting room, the restless Kiki stood on a chair and leaned on the back, looking left and right. His train is late. Fangbei had just received a call from Poplar Fruit. She smiled and said, "He might not arrive until 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock? What time is it now?" Kiki looked around and then fell into Fangbei's arms dizzily. She giggled. There was a clock in the waiting room. Fangbei pointed to the right and asked Kiki with a smile. There's a clock. Kiki, what time is it?" "I'm dizzy. I can't see. Kiki shook her head mischievously. Kiki and Fangbei were playing around. Song Jiwen and Chen Anlin came back with big and small bags. Fangbei quickly picked up the clothes on the 2 seats next to her and asked them to sit down. "Poplar Fruit will arrive in 2 hours. We can't wait. Let's eat first." Chen Anlin handed a bag of food to Fangbei and smiled. "There's nothing good to eat nearby. The only McDonald's is pretty good. It's cheap and good." "Old Gua is really too much. Why is he taking the train? Wouldn't it be better to just take a plane? How fast is a plane? It's not like we lack money." Song Jiwen took out his coffee and gulped down a mouthful. He complained. "The train was actually 3 hours late. I'm drunk." "It's not that we're short of money. It's just that there's no airport in Liang City. It's still a 2-hour drive to a nearby city." Fangbei covered her mouth and laughed. Who knew the train would be so late? Kiki likes to take the train. Woo 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 woo. Kiki pouted and imitated the sound of the train. They didn't have to worry about disturbing others because the entire temporary waiting room was extremely noisy. If they wanted to talk, they had to shout loudly. Kiki can't eat so much hot fast food. Fangbei opened the paper bag and looked at the fragrant French fries inside. Kiki's big eyes suddenly became bright. She shook her head and said, "Kiki can eat." Kiki nervously protected the paper bag. "You can eat, but you can't eat too much." Fangbei rubbed Kiki's hair and laughed. After giving Kiki some French fries, Fangbei didn't allow the little girl to eat. She directly poured all the French fries in the bag to Song Jiwen. Then she spread her hands and said to Kiki, "You can't eat anymore. You see, Mama doesn't want to eat." Because Fangbei set an example, Kiki didn't make a scene. She just reluctantly watched Song Jiwen eat the French fries. Her pink tongue licked the taste of salt on her mouth. Fangbei then fed Chi some bread and vegetables from the hamburger, as well as some chicken that she tore off from the crispy wrapper that wasn't fried. After that, she ate the rest of the hamburger that she tore apart. "Is it enough? Do you want me to buy more for you?" Song Jiwen asked. Fangbei shook her head and said with a smile, "No need, you don't have to eat so much tonight. Sister-in-law, help me take care of Kiki. I'll go borrow some water to make some milk powder for Kiki." Fangbei carried a small bag and walked to the station staff. After discussing for a while, the staff brought her to the boiling water room. She took the milk bottle and walked towards the waiting room. Fangbei met someone at the door. She moved her body slightly and smiled at the other party. She took the initiative to move aside. However, her good intentions didn't earn the other party's gratitude. They were both women. The other party was wearing black clothes and a cap. Her face couldn't be seen clearly, but she seemed to be from Xinjiang. She glanced coldly at Fangbei and walked straight out. Fangbei felt as if she had fallen into an ice cave in an instant. The other party's gaze was too cold. However, it was only for a moment. Fangbei thought that she was hallucinating. The warm milk bottle brought Fong Bebe back to reality. She curiously looked at the back of the woman in black, shook her head, and returned to the temporary waiting room. It was almost 8:30. After Kiki finished drinking the milk, she gradually became sleepy. She fell asleep in Fong Bebe's arms with her head drooped. Sleep if you're sleepy? Fong Bebe took out a coat from the bag beside her and wrapped Kiki in her arms. She gently stroked her hair and said, "Kiki wants to wait for Papa." Chi-Chi struggled for a moment before raising her sleepy little head and blinking her eyes hard. She mumbled, "You're right." Poplar Fruit had been on a business trip for almost a week. Kiki had missed her father for a long time. Today she was so happy to welcome her father. How could she bear to sleep? In the past, the little fellow was not so tenacious. Today, she calculated the time by herself. There was less than an hour left. She would be able to see her most beloved Papa soon. She had to wait. Thus, Kiki nestled in the warm and comfortable arms of Mama Ma. She smacked her lips and waited with her eyelids that were about to fall. Finally, after an unknown amount of time, Fong Bebe's phone vibrated. Fong Bebe picked up the phone and handed it to Chen Anlin, indicating for her to listen because Kiki had just closed her eyes. In the end, she was still a child. After waiting for a while, she was drowned by sleepiness. Looking at the corner of Kiki's mouth curled up, she wondered if she had met her father in her sleep. Otherwise, how could she be so happy? "Baby, I'm almost there. The train is about to enter the station." Poplar Fruit's hearty laughter came from the phone. "Brother Yang, I'm in lawn." Chen Anlin chuckled and said in a low voice, "Don't be too loud. Kiki just fell asleep." "Well, where are you? I'll get off the train and find you later. You don't need to come over." Poplar Fruit laughed. Brother Yang said that we don't need to go to the station to pick him up. He'll get off the train and come over directly. Chen Anlin lowered her voice and said to Fong Bebe. The main reason was that Kiki was sleeping. If they moved now, the little fellow might wake up. Fong Bebe was still hesitating. She was the same as Kiki. She missed Poplar Fruit very much. She couldn't wait to see him when Poplar Fruit got off the train. Song Jiwen waved his hand and took the phone from Chen Anlin. He told Poplar Fruit the location of the temporary waiting room they were in, and then hung up the phone. "How old are we now? He'll come over by himself." Song Jiwen laughed. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Chapter 1078. The temporary waiting room was actually very large. There were 2 glass doors that were always open. The smaller one led to the corridor at the back, and after walking up half a flight of stairs, one could reach the toilet on the middle floor. The big door was the entrance and exit, and all the entrances and exits were in that direction. Passengers waiting for the bus and taking the bus came and went. Even though it was almost 10 o'clock, it was still very lively. Because the main entrance was too noisy, Fong Bebe and the others chose to sit in a seat closer to the smaller door. However, Fong Bebe could not sit still. At first, she just kept looking back. Later, she stood up with the sleeping Kiki in her arms and looked at the main entrance. However, she could not see Poplar Fruit's figure. "It's been so long since we got off the train. Why isn't he here yet?" Fong Bebe muttered. Actually, it was not that long. Only 10 minutes had passed. "Bebe, you're almost turning into a rock." Song Jiwen laughed. Immediately, he was poked in the lung by Chen Anlin. Chen Anlin retracted his elbow, glanced at him, and snorted. "Don't make fun of Bebe." What was Poplar Fruit doing at this time? It was the peak hour for people to get on and off the train. Although the train station had a mechanism to divert people, Poplar Fruit squeezed through the crowd and walked toward the temporary waiting room. Then he entered the sea of people rushing to catch the train. Poplar Fruit was moving against the flow of people. People were pushing against each other. Even if he was skilled in martial arts, he could only squeeze against the wall and move slowly. Even though he was anxious and kept apologizing loudly, Poplar Fruit was still moving at the speed of a turtle. "Excuse me, excuse me, excuse me." Finally, there was a gap in the sea of people driving the train. The front was spacious, and Poplar Fruit could see the door of the temporary waiting room. "We're almost there." Poplar Fruit's gloomy heart finally brightened. The train was late and the crowd was crowded. Poplar Fruit's mind couldn't stay still. He flew to his girlfriend and daughter's side early. However, he felt an inexplicable throbbing from his heart to his spine. Poplar Fruit's pupils suddenly shrank. This feeling was so familiar. But before Poplar Fruit could think about it, the crowd in front of him became chaotic. With only a slight delay, screams and cries for help could be heard from the temporary waiting room. Poplar Fruit's heart pounded even harder. There was a feeling of suffocation, just like the feeling he had when he and Alan encountered assassins in the United States. However, this time his heart was not palpitating because of the threat of survival, but because of the safety of the person he loved the most. Fong Beibei and his daughter were still inside. And Song Jiwen and Chen Anlin. Murder, murder. The ear-piercing cries were heart-wrenching. At the same time, it tore Poplar Fruit's mind into pieces. Almost unconsciously, Poplar Fruit pushed the crowd and rushed forward. However, the crowd was too crowded. Many people even fell and tripped over others in their panic. In the turbulent wave of escape, people only cared about themselves and escaped from the terrifying scene. Their minds were blank as to what had happened. Poplar Fruit was the same. He was the only back in the wave of escape that was going against the flow. However, no matter how strong he was and how good his kung fu was, he could only stabilize himself. It was already difficult for him to move forward. Fortunately, Poplar Fruit quickly came back to his senses. He suddenly realized that he was only a hand away from a bloody fugitive in front of him. The other person's face was twisted with fear. He didn't know if it was his own or someone else's blood on his face. He looked like someone from a horror movie. Poplar Fruit's heart sank. He was even more anxious. Poplar Fruit didn't know what had happened inside, but he knew that Kiki and Fong Beibei were in danger. However, the crowd was still in a mess, and the impact was extremely strong. Yang Guo was only able to stand firm. He couldn't wait for the crowd to leave. He had to rush to their side as fast as possible to protect them. Poplar Fruit struggled to push two people away. He looked around and made up his mind. He exerted his strength and passed through the crowd. He jumped onto the ticket table on the left. Without waiting for her to stabilize herself, Yang Guo squatted down and jumped up with all her might. He was like an antelope leaping from the edge of a cliff. His posture was strong and graceful. However, no one noticed, because everyone was running away in a panic. Even the people in the train station hall were scared by the crowd. Poplar Fruit was so good at fighting. Why didn't he step on people's heads and use Qinggong to pass through? First of all, Poplar Fruit didn't know Qinggong. Second, reality wasn't a movie. The crowd looked dense, but it wasn't a good place to land. If he stepped on them, Poplar Fruit might not be able to use kung fu to support himself. If he stepped on someone's head, wouldn't Poplar Fruit slip? However, Poplar Fruit jumped very high. He flew directly over the crowd. Suddenly, he stretched out his arm and grabbed the top edge of the door. His whole body hung on it. The panicked people below had already squeezed into a group. The weak women and children were squeezed together with the strong men. No one was willing to give way to the other. As a result, the entrance was so crowded that not even a drop of water could trickle through. It wasn't until he reached the entrance that Poplar Fruit felt the tragedy of the scene. Cries, wails, and screams merged into one, erasing the fuzziness. It was so clear that it made one feel flustered. The entire temporary waiting hall looked as if it had been swept away by thousands of soldiers and horses. The items were scattered all over the ground. The heavy metal seats were overturned, and one could even see people being pressed under them. What angered Poplar Fruit the most was that as far as his eyes could see, there were 4 or 5 people dressed in black. They were waving long swords that emitted a cold light, chasing and cutting down innocent passengers who were fleeing in all directions. It was a crazy, indiscriminate attack. For some reason, the jargon in the game was reflected in Poplar Fruit's mind. This feeling was especially strong when a tall man dressed in black cut down an old man, who couldn't dodge in time without hesitation. That slash was accompanied by the sound of the wind as it struck the old man's head. The old man fell to the ground without a sound. Poplar Fruit didn't know, nor did he dare to imagine the consequences of this slash. It hadn't even been 2 minutes since the beginning, but Poplar Fruit could already see the mess and the horrifying pools of blood on the ground. There were already countless people on the ground. The men in black were still scattered, chasing and cutting down the fleeing crowd. One of them was already holding his sword high and rushing towards the entrance. Poplar Fruit hung on the door and anxiously looked around the temporary waiting hall, looking for the figures he was worried about. Bao Bao, Kiki, Mosquito, and Lon, where are you? Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations, greater than over equal to. Chapter 1079. 5 minutes ago, Poplar Fruit was still squeezed in the crowd rushing to the train. Fong Beibei was gently patting Kiki's back as she looked out of the door in a daze. Song Jiwen was a little impatient. He yawned, and Chen Anlin stretched a little sleepily. Don't worry, Lao Guo will be here in a while, Song Jiwen mumbled. However, at this time, 2 men in black leather came into the temporary waiting room. They were also wearing caps. Fong Beibei, who had been looking at the door, noticed them. Fong Beibei was stunned. She suddenly remembered the woman in black she bumped into when she was preparing milk for Kiki. Although there were 2 men who came in, their clothes were exactly the same as the woman in black. Perhaps because of Fong Beibei's gaze, one of the men in black seemed to have noticed. He looked over and saw Fong Beibei standing there. Fortunately, Fong Beibei had already lowered her head subconsciously. This person. So scary. Fong Beibei trembled a little as she hugged Kiki. She only felt that her mind was blank. Although she did not make eye contact with the other party, Fong Beibei still felt a gloomy coldness like maggots crawling into her bones. Why is this happening? Why do I feel that something is wrong? Fong Beibei hugged Kiki and bravely raised her head to look again. She saw that the 2 men in black had separated. They sat down in the crowd and put the long sports bag that looked like a tennis bag on their laps. What are they doing? Fong Beibei could not understand, and did not think much about it. Because she realized that in this big waiting room, there were actually a few men in black sitting. Among them, Fong Beibei even saw the woman in black she bumped into earlier. They were all dressed the same with caps, black jackets, and long pants. There was also a long sports bag in their arms. For some reason, although the surroundings were still noisy and lively, Fong Beibei felt that the atmosphere had frozen. It was as if spring in Spring City had turned into winter in Yang City. Brother Mosquito, something is wrong. Fong Beibei lowered her head and whispered to Song Jiwen. But before she finished speaking, a riot suddenly broke out. Like a flash of lightning, the first man in black pulled out a long machete from the bag. To be precise, it was a hidden blade. It was shorter than Poplar Fruit's Miao Dao, but it was wider and thicker. Tibetan swords were divided into long swords, short swords, and small swords. Needless to say, most of the short swords and small swords had become handicrafts. The long swords were straight, and they were the sharp weapons used by the Tibetans in the mountains to cut trees and open roads. Although it might not be as beautiful as the Miao Dao and Tang sword, it won in terms of thickness and sharpness. Every slash was very powerful. Of course, now was not the time to talk about blades. That flash of cold light was a spurt of blood. The man who was complaining to his friend about how difficult it was to buy a train ticket probably did not expect that the man in black sitting silently with his head lowered would suddenly pull out a blade and cut the back of his neck. Many people present did not expect that in the usually noisy but peaceful waiting room of the train station, there would be people. No, many people who suddenly turned hostile and pulled out their blades to slash everywhere. There was a young man who had just been bragging to his girlfriend about his heroic past. Under his girlfriend's frightened gaze, a similar cold light came at him. He subconsciously raised his hand and was instantly shaken, followed by a sharp pain. Ah! This was the first scream. When the young man saw that his arm was cut in half, he howled desperately. It was just a second of blankness. Suddenly, the whole waiting room was in an uproar. People overturned their chairs, overturned their friends, and scrambled to escape to the door. They didn't know anything. There was only one thought left in their minds: run. Escape from this hell of killing occupied by a group of lunatics. Fong Beibei was still talking to Song Jiwen about her doubts a second ago. And the next second, such a terrible change happened in the waiting room. Fong Beibei, Song Jiwen, and Chen Anlin were all stunned in place. Kiki was happy, because she was still sleeping sweetly in Fong Beibei's arms. In her dream, her father seemed to have bought her delicious candy. In Fong Beibei's arms, There was only safety and warmth. Even if the outside world was noisy, Kiki could sleep soundly. Chen Anlin's kung fu was good, but she was a girl. Moreover, she had never really encountered such vicious thugs, nor had she seen such a bloody scene. She was stunned on the spot, but it was not her fault. Song Jiwen was the first to react. He pulled Chen Anlin with one hand and pushed Fong Beibei with the other. Among the screams he shouted, "Run! No, no! Don't go that way!" Song Jiwen pulled them back. In front of them, there were two men in black who were fiercely slashing with knives. Although there were still people rushing forward, that direction was definitely not a good choice. Who knew, not only would they not be able to escape the net, but they would also be slashed horizontally by the knives. In front of them, there was already a guy who had been slashed in the back. Blood was dripping, but he was still a tough guy. He screamed and still lowered his head to run forward. But on their side, there were 3 adults and 1 child. They were too big of a target. Song Jiwen pulled Fong Beibei and Chen Anlin back hurriedly, trying to squeeze in the direction of the small door. Even if there was no escape route behind them, even if they ran along it, it would be good to run to the toilet and use the door to block it first. In the panic, Fong Beibei's bag fell to the ground. She did not even bother to pick it up. And the clothes that wrapped Kiki were nowhere to be found. Fong Beibei could only desperately hold on to Kiki, afraid that they would be separated by the crowd. But the small door was too small. People were squeezing and squeezing, and the entire glass door was crushed. Not only did the glass shards fall down, but the sharp door frame that collapsed completely blocked the staircase to the 2nd floor. Some people desperately wanted to rush up, but after all, there were too many people, and they could not move at all. At this time, there was a panic cry from behind. They saw a man in black holding a knife coming over here aggressively. On the way, he even cut down a middle-aged man who had just raised his head. The crowd wanted to run out, but they were all blocked by the messy chairs in front of them. The only escape route was met by the man in black. His ferocious and bloodthirsty face could be seen clearly. The people who had fled in all directions came back and squeezed together. Someone screamed, "Hurry up!" But they could not go up. Oh no, they were going to be surrounded like dumplings. Song Jiwen panicked, but he was the only man among the 3. Although he was scared to death, he still gathered his courage. He blocked Chen Anlin and Fong Beibei behind him and said loudly, "Don't be afraid, I will protect you." At this moment he finally stood in front of Chen Anlin like a man. But what could he use to block? With his flesh and blood? Just as they were about to lose hope, suddenly there was a loud shout. "Bow bow! Kiki! Poplar fruit!" Poplar fruit fell from the sky. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations greater than or equal to. Chapter 1080. Because his arms were hanging above the door, Poplar Fruit finally found the few familiar figures in the crowd at the small door. What made Poplar Fruit anxious was that a man in black was walking towards them. The long hidden blade had lost its original silver color, and sticky blood was dripping down, forming a ghastly bloody path along the footsteps. Poplar Fruit roared angrily. He exerted strength in his arms, and his whole body hung up. Then, with a swing of his legs, he used the inertia to slide a few meters in the air, and jumped into the temporary waiting room. "Bow bow Kiki, don't worry, I'm coming." Poplar Fruit's heart was fearless. He only had one thought, and that was to save Kiki and Fong Beibei from the hands of these evil people. As luck would have it, Yang would just happen to fall between the fleeing crowd and the black-clothed men who were chasing after her. Although it was not a heavenly soldier, Poplar Fruit's appearance still stunned the man in black who was about to cut down a middle-aged woman. Not for food, just away. The man in black shouted a string of strange words. And then he put down the middle-aged woman, raised the knife and swung it at Poplar Fruit. What is he talking about? Poplar Fruit did not have time to think. He nimbly dodged the knife, and then kicked the man in black to the ground. "Get out of my way!" Poplar Fruit roared. He did not have time to care about the other men in black who were still attacking. After clearing the men in black in front of him, Poplar Fruit jumped forward. Yes, jumping. Because of the people on the ground, the iron bench, and the suitcase in front of him, Poplar Fruit could not rush forward. He could only jump to avoid the obstacles and rush to the small door. The man in black there had already revealed his sinister smile. Is that Uyghur language? Poplar Fruit's mind seemed to have been struck by lightning. He seemed to have suddenly understood something. Poplar Fruit had never learned the Uyghur language, or rather, he had never fully learned the Uyghur language. His understanding of the Uyghur language was based on studying Arabic, Persian, and the Altaic language family that the Uyghur language belonged to. Poplar Fruit was able to read and understand Uyghur, which was written in the Arabic alphabet, and had a large vocabulary derived from Arabic, Persian, and even other languages. When you learn a lot of languages in the world, you can also reach the level of Poplar Fruit. After all, languages mostly influenced and interconnected each other. Poplar Fruit even felt that with the advancement of globalization, other than a few large language families, the other small languages in the world would gradually become assimilated. Just like the current Korean language, a large number of new words were transliterated from English. It sounded a little out of place, but it was indeed similar to English. Poplar Fruit had never practiced speaking before, so he was probably no different from a beginner. Therefore, Poplar Fruit could not be considered to know the Uyghur language. Of course, Poplar Fruit could still try to speak some simple pronunciations. Stop! Poplar Fruit shouted in awkward Uyghur language. He rushed to the back of the black-clothed man. And because of his roar, the black-clothed man's attention was attracted to him. No, it should be said that it attracted the attention of all the men in black. Perhaps it was because they heard the same language, but the man in black looked a little hesitant. Kill him! A deep but sinister shout was heard. It was shouted by a tall man in black, and it was also in Uyghur language. It also completely awakened the hesitation of the man in black facing Poplar Fruit. The man in black's eyes became crazy again. His long hooked nose was stained with blood from other people. He let out a short howl and swung his sword at Poplar Fruit. No! Feng Bebe cried out sadly. She knew that Poplar Fruit was good at fighting, but Poplar Fruit was unarmed after all. Yanghua hurriedly retreated again and again, constantly dodging the opponent's saber attacks. His appearance of being surrounded by danger made Song Jiwen and the others tremble in fear. However, Poplar Fruit kept shouting, trying to make the opponent give up. Soon, Poplar Fruit realized that he was too naive. This was a group of ferocious thugs. They were here to kill, so how could they put down their butcher's knife? Poplar Fruit was not Tang Sanzang. Even if he was Tang Sanzang, it was impossible for him to resolve this crazy killing. No, while Yang Guo was being chased, she was still able to notice the situation on the other side. A clearly female black-clothed person was waving a bloody blade at a 3- or 4-year-old boy. How could she do it? Poplar Fruit's face was full of disbelief. He saw a sick smile on her face, and the sword was chopping down on the boy's neck. Kiki should be around that age, right? Poplar Fruit's eyes suddenly turned red. Anger completely ignited his brain. Calm down, forgiveness, all of that scram to the side. This group of people in black, who were no longer human, did not deserve to be treated calmly, and they did not deserve to be forgiven. If she hesitated for one more second, another innocent passenger would be hurt. If she hesitated for one more second, the person lying in a pool of blood might become her friend. If she hesitated for one more second, the knife that was used to slash at the little boy just now would appear before Chi-Chi's eyes. Poplar Fruit's blood was burning. Every muscle cell in his body was awakened. The muscles on his arms and legs, which were usually not exposed, swelled up. Poplar Fruit would not hesitate anymore. He would not show mercy to these thugs. A shadow flashed past, and the man in black who had just raised the sword in his hand to slash at Poplar Fruit was smashed to the ground by his neck. He did not give him a chance to resist at all. Poplar Fruit punched him in the head. One punch, two punches, and the third punch directly smashed the man's skull. His peaked cap flew to God knows where. The man in black's eyes had rolled back, and blood was flowing out of his mouth, nose, ears, and other orifices. He did not know whether he was dead or not, but from the looks of it, he was not far from death. The danger at the small door was temporarily resolved, but the other men in black were still killing people. Other than the two men in black, a man and a woman, who were still relentlessly chasing after the passengers who were crying on the ground and curled up in a corner. The other two men in black had already chased the passengers who escaped from the main door to the main hall. Poplar Fruit did not have time to pay attention to the main hall, and he could not see from his angle. However, Poplar Fruit could not stand the two men in black who were attacking the old man and the child in the waiting hall. He grabbed the man in black who had been beaten into a pulp by him and lifted him up high. He was like a soldier who had chopped off the enemy's flag on the battlefield in ancient times, waving it around. "Stop. Come at me if you have the guts." Poplar Fruit roared. His eyes were also red, and he was like an injured wolf with a bloody mouth. The first part was in Uyghur, and the second part was in Mandarin that everyone could understand. Poplar Fruit could not remember how to say the second part of the sentence. His mind was a little confused. In the end, he could not calmly fight like a well-trained soldier, could he? Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations greater than or equal to *. Chapter 1081. Stop. If you have the guts, come at me. Poplar Fruit's thunderous roar attracted the attention of the two men and women in black. Because they saw the man in black in Poplar Fruit's hands who was as soft as mud, the two men and women in black's expression froze. And under their blades, the traveler who thought he was going to die, hurriedly used all four of his limbs to crawl away. He couldn't even stand up, so he could only crawl to a safe place to escape. "My matey!" The woman in black cried out in pain, and then she shouted at her companion, "Kill him, I want to kill him." The man also waved his blade and fiercely said, "Kill him, kill this Han, kill all the Han, avenge you Shan." Except for Poplar Fruit, no one could understand their words, but Poplar Fruit was not afraid. He waved his hand at them and shouted in awkward Uyghur language, "Come on, come on." Poplar Fruit's provocation further angered the two men. Both of them held their blades and rushed toward Poplar Fruit. The woman in black, the one who Fong Beibei bumped into before, held her blade with both hands. Her knuckles looked a little white, because she used too much strength. It could be seen that her hatred for Poplar Fruit was deep. "Uncle, be careful." Fong Beibei's heart almost jumped to her throat, but she couldn't help, so she could only shout in the crowd. Song Jiwen gritted his teeth and wanted to help Poplar Fruit get rid of one of them. At least the woman in black was good. However, he was stopped by Chun Anlin. Chun Anlin shouted at him, "What are you going to do? Do you want to cause trouble for Poplar Fruit?" Chun Anlin knew Poplar Fruit's kung fu the best. In fact, he didn't fully understand it. Dealing with two thugs, Poplar Fruit shouldn't be a problem. Poplar Fruit had already met the two thugs. He threw away the man in black in his hand and clenched his fists without flinching. The women watching screamed because they saw Poplar Fruit facing two sharp blades with his bare hands. When an egg hits a stone, of course the egg will break, but Poplar Fruit obviously won't use his flesh and blood to take the bloody hidden blade head-on. He first gently moved his shoulder, avoiding the woman in black's fierce stab, and then his right hand tightly holding the man in black's right wrist. Poplar Fruit completely relied on brute force to control the man's right hand, so that he couldn't chop it down. Then, Poplar Fruit twisted his right hand in the opposite direction, and the man in black fell out of pain. Poplar Fruit's left hand suddenly slapped the man in black's chest. This slap contained all of Poplar Fruit's anger. "Since you don't treat people as humans, why should I treat you as humans?" He slapped with all his strength, and even used the collapsing force of Xingyi martial arts. The force penetrated the man's body and exploded on his abdominal organs. Pooh! The man in black spat out a mouthful of blood, and his eyes bulged. Even though Poplar Fruit was still holding his right hand, he still fell to the ground with a loud bang. The man in black's heart was shattered, and he couldn't be more dead. Poplar Fruit forgot to dodge, and half of his face and clothes were sprayed with blood, aka Big Brother. The woman in black cried out in grief and indignation, and once again brandished her blade towards Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit didn't think that his slap would be so powerful, but to be honest, Poplar Fruit didn't feel the slightest bit of guilt for killing this man in black who had attacked unarmed and innocent people. Poplar Fruit's heart was only filled with hatred for this woman in black in front of him. She had just killed a 3- or 4-year-old boy with her own hands. Although it was a bit rushed, Poplar Fruit was still able to nimbly dodge the woman's blade at such a close distance. It seemed that the woman in black's skill was better than the other two. Although she was inconsolable, her blade technique wasn't messed up, and Poplar Fruit had to temporarily dodge. "Ah, you Han people all deserve to die," the woman in black shouted while brandishing her blade. Poplar Fruit's eyes turned cold, and once again he quickly grabbed the woman's hand that was brandishing the blade, and was about to punch her head. The wind had already broken through her messy hair, revealing her somewhat exotic face. She wasn't beautiful, and looked like she was in her 30s or 40s. Poplar Fruit's eyes flashed, and his fist stopped. It wasn't that he couldn't kill the woman, but now that Poplar Fruit had calmed down a little, he didn't want to kill anymore. Poplar Fruit turned his fist into a palm, and hit the back of the woman's neck. The woman in black immediately fainted and fell to the ground. This was a small trick that he had learned in the Special Forces. Poplar Fruit used his strength very cleverly, and not only did he not hurt the back of the woman's head, but he also made sure that she wouldn't wake up for 3 hours. The temporary waiting room fell into silence. Outside there were still people shouting for help, but this place was surprisingly quiet. This was relative because there were still people wailing in pain. Everyone stared blankly at Poplar Fruit, who was standing in the middle like the god of death. "It's okay, it's okay." Poplar Fruit put down the woman in black, and collected the 3 hidden blades on the ground. He said, "Everyone help call the police and bandage the injured friends." It was unknown how many had died, but there were still many injured people lying on the ground, screaming incessantly. Under Poplar Fruit's call, everyone started to act. They called the police while looking out of the gate worriedly, afraid that the demons would come back. People secretly looked at Poplar Fruit. Some were afraid, some were in awe, and some were grateful. Uncle, are you hurt?" Fong Beibei came over anxiously with Kiki in her arms. She cried and stretched out her trembling left hand, wanting to touch Poplar Fruit's bloody cheek, but she was worried that she would touch Poplar Fruit's wound. "Silly baby, why are you crying?" "It's not my blood." Poplar Fruit quickly wiped the blood on his face with his clothes and comforted her with a smile. "Did you see it? Boo-hoo, I was so worried about you." Fong Beibei finally felt relieved, but it was also because she was relieved that the fear and worry that she had been suppressing finally surged up and turned into tears. She began to cry. "Okay, don't cry, I'm here." Poplar Fruit hugged Fong Beibei and gently reached out to touch Kiki, who was sleeping soundly in his arms and did not know what was going on outside. "Everyone, give me a hand. Block the door with chairs, or else they will come back." Song Jiwen's voice came over, and woke up Yonggua, who was deeply in love. He finally noticed the cries and screams outside, and suddenly remembered that there were still 2 thugs committing murder. "Baby, don't run around." Poplar Fruit steeled his heart and pulled Fong Beibei away. He picked up the 3 knives on the ground and walked to the gate. "I've already called the police will be here soon," Song Jiwen said loudly. He was moving an iron bench with a few strong male passengers. The fainted woman in black was tied up with 5 flowers. If Chen Anlin did not stop them and said that they wanted to keep her alive for the police to interrogate, the victim's family members would have torn her apart. Poplar Fruit stared outside. There were still thugs outside, and it was not just 2 but 3 for no 5. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations greater than or equal to *. Chapter 1082. Poplar Fruit twisted his eyebrows. He turned around and walked to Fong Beibei's side. He looked into her eyes and said softly, "Baby, I'm sorry." Fong Beibei, who knew Poplar Fruit's character, understood Poplar Fruit's meaning. She nodded and said, "I'm fine. You can go." However, these words turned into sobs. Her tears kept flowing down, her nose was red, and her left hand was trembling while holding Poplar Fruit's clothes. Poplar Fruit patted Fong Beibei's hand. His eyes were a little red. He couldn't bear it, but he still said, "Don't worry, I will come back safely." After that, Poplar Fruit gritted his teeth and resolutely turned around and walked to the door. "Old Gua, don't go." Song Jiwen stood at the door worriedly and wanted to stop Poplar Fruit. The others also looked at him anxiously. They didn't want such an amazing guardian to leave their side. "Mosquito, I'll leave this place to you. Block the door and protect Beibei and Kiki." Poplar Fruit didn't waste any more words. He handed a meowed out to Song Jiwen and hugged Song Jiwen's shoulder. He held the remaining 2 miadeos and ran outside. He couldn't be sentimental anymore. If he delayed for another second, another innocent person would fall into a pool of blood. Hey! Poplar Fruit exerted strength in his dantian, and suddenly shouted. His voice shook the entire train station hall, and covered the tourists' cries and screams. The train station was not completely defenseless, but most of the security guards were just paper tigers. They had long been scared and fled with the crowd. Only a few security guards had the courage to take out their only equipped batons and fight with the men in black. The scene was very tragic. The 2 security guards knocked down a man in black. However, before they could be happy, a man in black rushed out from the side and slashed at them with a long hidden knife. A security guard stood in front of his companion and blocked the fatal blow. He even grabbed his companion's hand. His companion was able to escape, but he was badly mutilated by the 2 black-clothed men, and was on the verge of death. Poplar Fruit's shout finally attracted the attention of the 5 men in black. Poplar Fruit took the opportunity to shout, "Chop me! Come on!" These 2 sentences were in Uyghur, which Poplar Fruit had just figured out. Next, he brandished the 2 hidden knives and shouted as if he was showing off his spoils of war. "You all deserve to die. I killed all of your people. What my matey, what Jade Mountain, and that woman. Ha ha ha." He didn't know if they understood Chinese. Poplar Fruit wanted to provoke them and attract all the attention to himself. This way the innocent people would be safe. "You cowards! Trash!" Poplar Fruit tried to curse them in Uyghur. At this time, a tall man in black roared loudly in Uyghur language. Under his call, several men in black all brandished their swords and slashed towards Yanghua. "That's it, that's it." Poplar Fruit was excited. He wanted to kill these thugs who killed without batting an eyelid. Poplar Fruit held the hidden knife. Although it wasn't easy to use, it was still a sharp weapon. He made a meow gesture and faced the first man in black. Because of the distance, the first man in black came faster than the others. However, he didn't expect that Poplar Fruit was not the ordinary people he had chased just now. "Kill!" Poplar Fruit shouted and raised his 2 knives. Not only did he block the hidden knife that was coming down from above, but he also used the knife in his left hand to cut down. "Ah!" The man in black screamed. The fingers of his right hand holding the knife were all cut off. "Do you know your mistake? Why did you sharpen the knife to such a sharp point?" Poplar Fruit didn't let him go. He dodged the falling hidden knife. His body turned, and he used the inertia to cut the man in black with his right hand. The man in black was holding his right hand and screaming. This knife was not fatal, but it was enough to cut open the skin of his arms and break his bones. He definitely lost the ability to fight. In fact, he also fainted from the pain. The tall black-clothed man in the lead paused. He knew that he had encountered a tough opponent. He shouted and stopped the other 3 black-clothed men. Poplar Fruit looked at him coldly. Holding the knife with both hands, he snorted and asked, "What are you afraid?" In the messy train station hall, the injured people were wailing. The people who had fled were still shouting in panic. There were also some people who hid in the ticket hall and the security room, trembling. There were also some people who hid on the 2nd floor. Those who were not afraid of death poked their heads out to check the situation. However, in the middle of the hall, there were 5 people standing with knives. They looked like the masters in the movies. However, compared to the movies, this scene was more realistic. The people who saw it were more frightened, because they had just encountered this scene. 4 men in black surrounded Poplar Fruit, who was wearing a light gray sweater. The contrast was very obvious. After listening to Poplar Fruit's provocation, although it was in Mandarin, they still understood it. Several men in black were so angry that they clenched their teeth. They just wanted to chop Poplar Fruit into meat paste. However, the tall man in black didn't say anything, so they didn't move. They looked very organized and disciplined. Poplar Fruit thought of the terrorist organizations that had been disturbing Xinjiang for a long time, and their martial arts. The woman in black just now was very powerful. Then, the man in black who was caught off guard and had his finger cut off by Poplar Fruit also looked like he had been trained to use a knife. Moreover, the 4 people in front of him seemed to be standing in an ancient formation. They formed a triangle with Poplar Fruit. However, Poplar Fruit was not afraid. In the past, Cheong Kahu could go in and out of a hail of bullets like a madman, killing the Vietnamese army. How could Poplar Fruit, who had inherited Cheong Kahu's knife skills and madness, be afraid of such a small scene? Poplar Fruit's eyes became sharper. Hee, you cowards who only know how to attack ordinary people. Poplar Fruit continued to scold, his mouth unforgiving. You are the coward. One of the men in black cursed back in Mandarin. You Han people deserve to die. You stole our land. You deserve to die. We Han people and Uyghur people are one family. Your attempts to divide us will all fail. Poplar Fruit shouted. He was not a nationalistic youth or a communist, but he was very clear about the major issues. Over the years, they had done a lot of evil in Xinjiang. Now they were going to bring disaster to Kunming. Poplar Fruit would not ignore it. Don't talk nonsense with him. The leader of the men in black scolded in Uyghur. Kill him, then kill all the Han people. Allah's warriors will win. Allah's warriors will win. The last cry completely lifted the spirits of the three men in black. They also roared and rushed toward Poplar Fruit. What? Hearing their words, Poplar Fruit understood, but a trace of doubt flashed in his heart. A piece of information entered his mind, but he did not have time to analyze it in detail, because the battle was right in front of him. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Chapter 1083. Bang! A loud gunshot echoed in the station hall. Especially since it was a gunshot in the middle of the night, the people who were already scared shrunk their heads in fear. Only a few daring people peeked out and saw a group of policemen dragging two people away, one in black and the other in white, from afar. Then a lot of policemen surrounded and sealed off the entire station. The ambulance drove directly to the front of the station hall, and doctors and nurses in white coats ran in with stretchers behind the policemen. Many special police officers with guns searched the rooms one by one. Gradually, Kunming train station returned to its reassuring noisy state. Yes, instead of the heart-wrenching screams and cries for help, or the silence as if everyone had died, the tourists could now hear friendly Mandarin, which was the best comfort for the frightened tourists. However, this did not mean that the matter had come to an end. Some of the innocent passengers who had died in time were put into black bags by the medical staff, zipped up, and sent to the hospital to await follow-up treatment. The injured passengers were treated in a race against time. After being identified by the passengers, the 5 men in black who were still alive were arrested. Their wounds were bandaged and treated briefly, and then sent to the police station to await further interrogation. The 2 men in black who had been killed by Poplar Fruit were also sent to the designated location. Naturally, they would be treated accordingly. However, the special police officers were surrounded by a group of passengers. Among them, Song Ji-wen and the rest were leading, followed by the excited passengers in the waiting room, and some passengers who had seen Poplar Fruit's power. Where did you take my brother? Song Ji-wen's eyes were red, and he grabbed the special police officers by their collars and roared. I don't understand what you're saying. We're just catching the bad guys, please understand. The special police officers said with a frown. What do you mean bad guys? A traveler who had just come down from upstairs pointed at them angrily and said, if it wasn't for that young man who single-handedly defeated 5 thugs and saved us, we would have been dead by now. He even shouted, I saw people wearing clothes like yours when I was upstairs just now. You shot our little brother, you shot our hero. I saw you dragging the body away. They were trying to bury the truth. You guys don't beat up the bad guys, but you're always bullying your own people. Give us back our savior. A middle-aged woman, who had almost been killed by the thugs in the waiting room, bared her fangs and brandished her claws at the special police officer in front of her. Song Ji-wen also angrily attacked the SWAT team with the other crowd. At this time, Chun Anlin was sitting on the ground behind them with Fong Beibei in her arms. Kiki had already been woken up. She didn't have enough sleep, so she grabbed Fong Beibei's sleeve. Hearing Fong Beibei's cries, she also felt sad and wailed loudly. Everyone calm down, calm down. We haven't fully grasped the specific situation yet. When the investigation comes to light, we will definitely give you an accurate answer, okay? The captain of the SWAT team had a bitter face and shouted loudly in front of them. By the time you finish your investigation, our hero will have already been destroyed by you. The angry traveler shouted. The police are King pigs. What did you say? One of the SWAT team angrily pushed him, but he was immediately dragged to the back by the experienced veteran team members. The veteran team members knew that in this situation, they couldn't make a move. I said you are pigs. The traveler looked at the person who pushed him with disdain and said, Isn't that so? How long did it take you to get here? If it wasn't for our young man hero. His eyes were a little red. He sniffed and said with an uncomfortable sobbing tone, If it wasn't for our young man hero stepping forward and taking care of all the thugs, would we still be alive until you came to save us? King indiscriminately killed our young man hero with one shot. You have sinned. The traveler was sad and wailed to the sky, after being stirred up by him. The surrounding people forgot what they were doing and started to cry. This feeling was as if the only belief that they relied on to survive had been destroyed. Suddenly they were confused, in pain, helpless, and heartbroken. In fact, many people were hiding inside and didn't know what was happening outside, including the medical staff and police officers who had just come in. They couldn't understand why the rescued people were surrounding the SWAT team members. They were crying so sadly. This sadness made the spectators feel an inexplicable sorrow in their hearts, and their eyes immediately turned red. The SWAT team leader was actually very innocent and wronged, but when he heard them cry, he wanted to cry too. Didn't they see that many of the SWAT team members were wiping their tears? Although it could be that it was a touching sight, it was tears of not being understood. At this time, someone stepped forward and bowed to the crying crowd in front of him. He said loudly, Fellow villagers, I am the director of the Kunming Public Security Bureau, Huang Mingxi. Can everyone listen to me for a moment? He paused for a moment before continuing. We really don't understand what happened just now, but don't worry, we'll definitely get to the bottom of this, including these thugs. We won't let our heroes cry, and we won't let any of the bad guys go. This is my promise to all of you. We want to see him if he's alive, and we want to see his corpse if he's dead. A traveler shouted. His name is Poplar Fruit. Please help me find him. Song Jiwen said with tears in his eyes. We didn't know what happened at the time. Poplar Fruit, in order to save everyone, he didn't care about his own safety. You must bring him back to us. Okay. We promise. Huang Mingxi even took out a book and asked, What's his name? Which fruit? Muyang, fruit as in fruit. He's 25 or 26 years old, very tall, at least 185 meters. Song Jiwen quickly said, He's very famous, you'll know if you search his name online. In the end, the police arranged for Song Jiwen and Chen Anlin, as well as Fang Beibei and Kiki, who had fainted from crying, to rest in the hotel. Some of the other passengers left, while some volunteered to stay and be Poplar Fruit's witnesses. Kunming would definitely not sleep that night. On the internet, all the major media outlets began to report this shocking news. Soon, some news about Poplar Fruit spread from the passengers. Then, some of the passengers' videos appeared one by one. Tonight was lively, and tomorrow would be even more lively. Looking for monthly votes. Looking for recommendations greater than or equal to *. Chapter 1084. The whole world was looking for Poplar Fruit, but where was the Poplar Fruit? Although he had been electrocuted, Poplar Fruit was fine. He didn't experience any transmigration, rebirth, or other strange phenomena. He just slept, and it was a very long sleep. For Poplar Fruit, 6 hours was a record. It wasn't hard to understand. He had been too tired recently. He had been running around in the mountains for the past few days, worrying about the safety of the 120 people. He hadn't had a good rest at all. The fight 6 hours ago had also consumed a lot of his energy. It was mainly because he was worried about Fang Beibei and Kiki's situation. Poplar Fruit slept for 6 hours with the help of the electric baton. When he woke up, Poplar Fruit found himself handcuffed in a large interrogation room. This could be considered as entering the palace for the second time. Yang Guo recalled her dark history of standing up for Duan Xueqing back in Yangcheng. She couldn't be more familiar with this ice-cold interrogation room. F***CK. That bastard. Poplar Fruit shook his head and stared. He wasn't scolding the police. He was worried about the leader of the group who had escaped after being hit by his flying knife. Hey, you're awake? At this time, a female police officer with short black hair pushed the door open. She was shocked when she saw Poplar Fruit staring at her. She quickly jumped out and closed the door. Hey, wait. Poplar Fruit was depressed. Was he as fierce as he looked? Of course, he didn't know that the female police officer, in fact, she was my daughter, who had been working for less than a year, had already determined that he was a ruthless thug. She was scared when she saw him staring at her. Hey, is there anyone here? Poplar Fruit frowned and shouted. After a while, the big iron door of the interrogation room was opened again. A middle-aged police officer and the female police officer walked in. The middle-aged police officer's hand was still on the holster at his waist. The holster was already unbuckled, and he could pull out the gun at any time. You can't run away, or else we'll shoot. My daughter said nervously. I think we should wait for the director to come back and interrogate him. The middle-aged police officer was even more nervous than the female police officer. He whispered, the director told us to keep an eye on him. If he escapes, we'll be in big trouble. The little policewoman was still a little hesitant, but she straightened her thin chest and said, No, don't you think this is a good opportunity for us to make a contribution? Hey, can you guys listen to me for a moment? Yang Guo didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at them. They didn't care about him at all. He interrupted. What do you want to say? My daughter asked. Haven't you realized that you've caught the wrong person? Poplar Fruit frowned and asked. Caught the wrong person. Impossible. It's impossible for us special police officers to catch the wrong person. My daughter said with certainty. Poplar Fruit sighed and said, Please, when you catch people, can't you distinguish between the good and the bad? If you don't catch the bad guy, why did you catch me? Special police officers said, You're the thug who cut people. My daughter stared at Poplar Fruit and said unconvinced, Dear, the one I cut is the thug, okay? When you rushed in, you didn't wait for me to explain, you electrocuted me. Poplar Fruit said helplessly and angrily, Do you know there's another thug who ran away in the chaos? Don't try to confuse us. We have the fiery eyes of truth. No, what I mean is, we're good police officers who can see through everything. My daughter shouted. She was full of righteousness, but a little silly. Poplar Fruit shook his head. He was going crazy. He took a deep breath and said, How about this? I won't argue with you. Take out your phone and search for Poplar Fruit's name on the internet. Then you'll know. Who's Poplar Fruit? My daughter asked in confusion. Both of Yang Guo's hands were cuffed. She could only point at her own face from afar. Speechless, she said, It's me, Yang Guo. Muyi Yang, the fruit of apple. Chunjing, let's not listen to him. Be careful not to be tricked by him. The middle-aged police officer looked over and said to my daughter, So her name is Chunjing. Chunjing waved her hand and said indifferently, What's the matter? It's not like I'll lose anything by checking. Chunjing, be careful, it's a trap. The middle-aged police officer was long-winded, but he still looked over and asked curiously, Chunjing, where did you buy the pendant on your phone? Chunjing looked at him speechlessly and said, Uncle, I finally understand why you've been doing household administration. Why do you always pay attention to these useless things? We're working on a case. If you make a contribution, won't you get a promotion and a raise? The middle-aged police officer smiled awkwardly and said, I think it's pretty, so I want to buy one from our Xiao and I. Okay. Did you find it? If you found it, then let me go. I was just doing a good deed and I got caught. Seriously. Poplar Fruit knocked on the table and asked. My daughter suddenly screamed, startling Poplar Fruit and the middle-aged police officer. What's wrong? What's wrong? The middle-aged police officer asked nervously. Uncle. Chunjing pulled the middle-aged police officer to the side and whispered, It seems like we really caught the wrong person. Half an hour later, the special police officer who brought Poplar Fruit in, and the station's police station chief bowed, and apologized to Poplar Fruit. The young policewoman was still standing behind them with a smug look on her face, but the middle-aged policeman was smart enough not to follow them. It's okay for me to be wronged. It's just, Poplar Fruit touched his wrist that was just uncuffed and asked doubtfully. There was a thug in black. Did you catch him? The captain of the SWAT team scratched his head and said embarrassedly, I'm sorry, we thought you were the one. So after we subdued you, the thug got up from the ground and suddenly picked up your knife to chop our comrade. Then I fired a shot, and he died. He died? Poplar Fruit was a little surprised, but he didn't care. He cared about the leader in black. No, I'm not talking about him. But this thug was pestering me, mainly to buy time for another thug to escape. That was their mastermind. When I fought with them, these thugs all listened to the orders of the mastermind, and they often used very provocative words. It's useless to catch the others. Catching him is the most important thing. Poplar Fruit said in a deep voice. So what I'm asking is, did you catch a thug who was running in the direction of the station and was injured? I threw the knife out and made a cut on his right arm, right here about this long. Mastermind? The special police team captain's expression became dignified. He said, we didn't notice the third person at that time. No, I have to report this to the higher-ups immediately. With that, he hurriedly walked outside, looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Chapter 1085. Director, when can I leave? After the SWAT team leader left, Poplar Fruit and the others were left alone again. Poplar Fruit asked anxiously. It was already dawn, but he still hadn't seen Fong Beibei and the others. His worries were getting heavier and heavier. The director of the station waved his hand and said, Comrade Poplar Fruit, you can't leave for the time being. We need you to cooperate with us to investigate and hunt down these thugs. I see. Poplar Fruit was a little disappointed. He said, it's my duty to help, but can you lend me your phone? I want to tell my family that I'm safe. They were also at the scene yesterday. Now that they haven't seen me for so long, they're probably worried sick. He had nothing on him now, let alone a phone. The director hesitated for a moment and nodded. Chen Jing took the first step. She took out her phone and handed it to Poplar Fruit. She said with a smile, do you still remember the number? Do you want me to help you find your phone? She was quickly glared at by the director. My daughter stuck out her tongue and shrank her head. However, it was very strange that such a young policewoman like her was mingling here. Yet no one scolded her. No need, I can remember. Poplar Fruit only wanted to contact Fong Beibei. He didn't have the patience to wait for his phone to be found. After dialing Fong Beibei's phone, Poplar Fruit put it to his ear. Then he looked at their eyes and simply took it down. He turned on the speaker and directly broadcast the whole scene. Hello? Who is this? Poplar Fruit heard Song Jiwen's tired voice, and some vague crying sounds came from the receiver. Poplar Fruit's heart suddenly tightened. He said, Mosquito, it's me. Let Beibei answer the phone. Lao Gua? F***CK, F***CK. Song Jiwen's voice suddenly rose. It was hard to tell whether he was surprised, excited, or excited to spread the news immediately. Perhaps it was both. He immediately said loudly, Lao Gua, where have you been? Do you know how worried we are about you? Beibei had been crying all night. Kiki was also crying. We all thought you were beaten to death by those stupid cops. Coincidentally, the SWAT team leader who had just returned from his report overheard the conversation. The group of policemen looked at each other and smiled awkwardly. I'm fine. Give the phone to Beibei. Poplar Fruit urged again. Poplar Fruit soon heard the sound of sniffling. Fong Beibei's hoarse voice could be heard. She choked with sobs as she said, Uncle Yu, I'm fine. I'm fine. Poplar Fruit said quickly, Baby, why are you crying like a big dirty cat again? Don't cry. Yesterday I thought you. Fong Beibei was so sad that she couldn't continue speaking, but in fact, her mood had improved a lot. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, Okay, don't cry. I'm really fine. There's nothing wrong at all. It's just that there's a misunderstanding with the police. I'm still in the police station now. I'll be able to see you after the investigation is completed. Okay. Fang Beibei was so happy that she cried again. She could only respond with a soft nasal voice. It was so sweet that all the policemen who were listening to her had goosebumps. How's Kiki? Are you all okay? Poplar Fruit was also very worried about Kiki. Although it was still very early, not even 6 o'clock, Poplar Fruit thought that Kiki shouldn't have woken up yet. She also cried a lot. In her dream, she said that she wanted Daddy. Fang Beibei said in a low voice, maybe she'll wake up after a while, but she'll definitely cry again if she doesn't see you when she wakes up. Poplar Fruit's heart ached. He turned his head and asked the director and the others, well, can I ask if my family can come and see me while I'm cooperating with your investigation? My daughter is still young. Without me, she'll definitely make a lot of noise. Everyone was a little hesitant. My daughter, Police Officer Chen Jing, walked out and shook the director's arm. She said, Uncle Wu, it's okay. It's not a big deal. Let's give them an office to rest. Didn't the city leader always say that we have to be humane and not be too rigid? Isn't that leader your father? The director cursed in his heart. If it weren't for Chen Jing's background, if it were any other police officer who dared to exceed their authority, they would definitely die a horrible death. Director Wu, I think little Chen is right. Poplar Fruit isn't a bad person. We still need his help. Don't be too harsh. The captain of the special police team also advised. Only I'm the bad guy? The director was a little depressed, but he still smiled and said to Poplar Fruit, since everyone has said so, Poplar Fruit, let your family come over. But don't hinder our work. You know, this is a very special time. Poplar Fruit was overjoyed. After thanking him, he quickly told Fang Beibei to ask Song Jiwen to send them over. Fang Beibei and the others came quickly. The hotel they were staying at wasn't far. Song Jiwen drove and arrived at the police station in less than 10 minutes. Poplar Fruit went up to them and wanted to hug Fang Beibei. In the end, he was hugged by Song Jiwen first. He was also worried that Poplar Fruit was worried sick. He flipped through Poplar Fruit's clothes and asked long-windedly, Damn kid, you didn't lose an arm or a leg, right? I'm fine, Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Fortunately, Chen Anlin, who couldn't stand it, pulled him back and said angrily, Why are you going to join in the fun? Get down. Baby. Kiki. Poplar Fruit went up and hugged Fang Beibei and Kiki, whose eyes were red and began to cry again. He said softly, I'm sorry to have made you worry. No, as long as you're fine. That's the most important thing. After Fang Beibei let Poplar Fruit carry Kiki, she put her hands around Poplar Fruit's waist and let his right hand hold her tightly. Although I don't take a shower all day and I stink, it's so good to smell your scent. Fang Beibei giggled. She was crying tears of joy, but her smile was very sweet. Silly baby. Poplar Fruit lovingly helped Fang Beibei tidy up her hair. I miss you too, Papa. Kiki in her father's arms, rubbed her eyes with her hand and muttered. Kiki actually just woke up. Because she had slept enough. She woke up when the adults walked and shook her. She was crying just now, but after seeing her father, she forgot to cry. Her tears were hanging. Daddy misses you too. Poplar Fruit lowered his head and kissed his daughter's face. He pulled out his hand from Fang Beibei and gently wiped the golden beans on Kiki's face. He said with a smile, Was Kiki very brave yesterday? Daddy wasn't around. No, Kiki was very scared. She was crying. The little girl pursed her lips and said with grievance, Papa said he would come back, but Kiki didn't see Papa, and then Mama was also crying. Okay. Daddy promised you that next time, I will do what I say. I will not stand Kiki up, okay? Poplar Fruit smiled and kissed Kiki's face again. Kiki, of course, would also return the favor. She hugged her father's neck and forcefully left a wet kiss mark on her father's face. Then she curiously asked, Daddy, what do you mean by standing Kiki up? Author's note. Recently, many readers have said that the quality of the novel has dropped. Little Han knows this. That's because Little Han is trying hard to skip the long-winded plots and only keep the plots that are useful for the ending. Little Han is striving to reach 2015 as soon as possible. You should all understand that Little Han wants to write the third season of Where Are We Going, Daddy? It was a coincidence that Xia Xia and Kiki's image were 80% identical. This was something that Xiao Han did not expect when he designed Kiki, but this coincidence also strengthened Xiao Han's belief in writing the third season. In the new month, the results did not improve, and Xiao Han did not dare to shamelessly ask for everyone's monthly votes. He only hoped that the readers who had been accompanying Xiao Han could persevere. You are one of the few reasons that Xiao Han can persevere. Thank you. Thank you. Chapter 1086. Poplar Fruit's eyes lit up as he turned around and said, Lu Zifeng, that's probably the name. Can you check this name? Did you find anything? Yan Wanxiong quickly came over and asked. Poplar Fruit pointed to a simple hand-drawn map in the notebook. There was a mountain drawn on it, and some Uyghur letters written on it. He said, if I'm not wrong, this is the map they escaped from. But it's a pity that it's too simple. There are no other clues at all. Although I don't know what this mountain is called, this wavy line here is not a river, but a border. Poplar Fruit's finger gently drew on a few words on the map. There is a cave on this mountain. They hid food and water in it. As long as they hide in it, they can wait for Lu Zifeng to send them out of the country. Poplar Fruit said, I guess so because there is no phone number on it. There is only the word wait written in the cave, and then this arrow points to the border. Do you know where this mountain is? Or where are they going? Laos, Miandian, or Nandue? Yan Wanxiong asked a lot of questions. Poplar Fruit shook his head and said, I don't know. Maybe they still have a map, but it has been torn up. He pointed to the traces of torn pages in the notebook, feeling a little regretful and unwilling. If it was just a name that had been transliterated twice, it would be very difficult to find the person who had provided the smuggling channel for the thugs in the vast sea of people. Hey, wait. A capable criminal policeman next to him stepped forward and said, Director Yan, could this be Lu Da? Lu Da? Yan Wanxiong asked doubtfully. Lu Da is a local snake in Wenshan. The criminal policeman said, he has a lot of connections with the underground forces in Nanyue. After that, his nickname was Lunatic Lu. Isn't that Lu Zifeng? Wait a minute. Poplar Fruit suddenly realized. He clapped his hands and said, I got it. Poplar Fruit raised the paper in his hand and said, I just said Lu Zifeng because the Uyghur language is written from right to left. But in fact, when they wrote this name, they probably wrote it according to the Chinese characters. Look at this stroke. The strokes here are connected, which means that they wrote the name from left to right. How cunning. Yan Wanxiong sighed and immediately ordered, focus on monitoring Lu Da, don't alert him. In addition, keep an eye on the major hospitals, clinics, and pharmacies in the province. As long as there are any abnormal patients or the purchase of large amounts of hemostatic cotton and disinfectants, report it immediately. Immediately, someone walked out and quickly spread the news. Yanghua continued to flip through the notebooks to see if she could find any clues from them. It looked like they were copied from the teachings of the church. However, he didn't find any useful information. It seemed that the group of thugs had destroyed a lot of information before they left. The map just now seemed to have been left in the notebooks and forgotten. In the afternoon, after Kiki got up, she called Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit talked to Kiki for a long time, comforting the little girl who was unhappy because she couldn't see her father. As he talked, he also walked around the house. Fortunately, this guy had worked hard and made a lot of contributions. The police investigators restrained themselves and didn't throw him out. Hey, wait. Poplar Fruit suddenly said to Kiki on the phone. Kiki, Dad has something urgent to deal with. Dad will call you later, okay? But Kiki hasn't finished yet. Kiki still wants Dad to buy a cake and a beautiful bell for gold. Ha. Oh, Papa is so bad. Don't wait for Kiki to finish. Kiki heard the busy tone from the phone and angrily turned to complain to Fong Beibei. Poplar Fruit hurriedly ran to the captain of the criminal police team next to him. Yan Wanxiong had returned to the hall not long ago to command. Captain Huang. I found it. Poplar Fruit said with some excitement. Captain Huang couldn't wait to ask. What did you find? Poplar Fruit, tell me. Poplar Fruit had given them a lot of surprises today. Every time, he could give them a big push for this operation. The word cave. Poplar Fruit quickly said. It's not a cave, we all misunderstood. It's Dongting Mountain. Wenshan City's Dongting Mountain. Poplar Fruit pulled Captain Huang over and pointed to the land between Wenshan City and Nanyue. There was a long mountain range marked on it, and the name Shuanghua Mountain was written on it. Here. Poplar Fruit pointed to the Nanyue language and said, this mountain borders Nanyue. In our country it's called Shuanghua Mountain, but in Nanyue, it's called Dongting Mountain. I finally understand why they forgot to take this map with them, Poplar Fruit said excitedly. It's because this was originally an abandoned map that was clipped in a notebook. When they wrote the word cave, they probably felt that they couldn't write it too straightforwardly, so they abandoned the map. Poplar Fruit felt that his deduction was correct. Just as Poplar Fruit was deducing, new developments came from the Kunming investigation headquarters. The railway police had found a pool of blood on a freight train that had just arrived in Wenshan City. At the same time, the Wenshan City police reported their progress. Luda got rid of the police's tracking. The driver of the train said that Luda had escaped half an hour ago through the mall's disguise. All signs indicated the direction of the thug's escape. It was definitely Wenshan City's Wui. If they didn't block their escape route in time, they would definitely escape. As long as they escaped to Nanyue, or even other countries through the underground tunnels or other channels, it would be extremely difficult to catch them. Lock down the mountain immediately. Yan Wanxiong, who had received Poplar Fruit's report, commanded decisively. Increase the police force and police dogs. Don't let them escape. It wasn't just the Wenshan police. The provincial capital had also increased the police force and sent the army to help search the mountain. Poplar Fruit's mission was over, so he returned to the police station to meet up with Fang Beibei and the others. He was then punched by his daughter. Of course, Poplar Fruit, who was no longer a suspect, was free. They returned to the hotel room that the police had arranged for them to rest. However, before they could settle down in the room, Yan Wanxiong called. Poplar Fruit, we caught them. Yan Wanxiong was very excited because they had almost effortlessly ambushed Luda and the thug's mastermind on the dirt road leading to Dongting Mountain. All of Poplar Fruit's deductions had been correct. Congratulations, Chief Yan. You can breathe a sigh of relief now, Poplar Fruit said with a smile. In fact, Poplar Fruit was also relieved. After all, they had caught these guys. Poplar Fruit didn't have to worry about revenge. Haha, we'll be holding a press conference soon, Yan Wanxiong said with a smile. Why are you telling me this? Poplar Fruit wondered. Poplar Fruit, stay in the room and don't move. I'll send someone to pick you up. You have to attend this press conference too, Yan Wanxiong said with a smile. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Not to mention his family and friends, Song Jiwen had forgotten to inform the school, causing Higashiyama University, and even the Ministry of Education to make things difficult for the Ministry of Public Security. They demanded a thorough investigation of Poplar Fruit's whereabouts and encounter. The cultural world, including teacher Mo Yen and other writers, asked about Poplar Fruit's whereabouts on Weibo and other public platforms. Some of Poplar Fruit's close friends in the entertainment industry also paid close attention to the progress of the matter. Poplar Fruit had already dominated Weibo. People lit candles to pray for Poplar Fruit and the innocent people who were injured or killed in the incident. Tungsun News specially made a special topic for this incident, and Poplar Fruit used thousands of words and more than 50 pictures to report it. Who is Poplar Fruit? This was a question about Poplar Fruit's report. It was asked to the readers, but everyone could find the answer in it. Tungsun News could be said to have the most right to speak about Poplar Fruit's report. Ever since Poplar Fruit emerged, Tungsun News had been accompanying and reporting on him. Now very few people might remember that Poplar Fruit, who appeared in front of everyone because of the biography of Steve Jobs, was young, but also confident and strong. He could calmly and generously speak at the press conference, answer Professor Luo Lin's tests fluently, and even translate Steve Jobs' letter to his wife in front of everyone's eyes. His beautiful and impeccable words were just like his handsomeness, making people who understood and did not understand intoxicated. However, Poplar Fruit did not continue to be exposed to the spotlight. Just like his usual style, he kept a low profile and worked very hard. What did Poplar Fruit do in the year when the media did not pay attention to him? He translated Mo Yan's novel, allowing Mo Yan's literary talent to bloom in the selection of the Nobel Prize. He also translated The Fantasy of the Young School. His translation skills were so good that even a famous director like Lian had to lower his status to negotiate with him. He entered Higashiyama University to further his studies, but before he entered the university, he had already published a thesis that opened a new level of translation theory. He learned as many as 14 languages, and this number had long become a thing of the past. Because of a trip, he came to a remote and poor Hmong village. He used his own money to equip the children with modern machines, so that they could see the outside world and touch their own futures. He also single-handedly created remote volunteer teaching, which made teaching easier and made university students more enthusiastic about participating in public welfare. Oh, by the way, Poplar Fruit also did a lot of things. For example, he and his girlfriend designed Hearthstone, which was currently popular all over the world. Also, he and his daughter made a guest appearance and invested in Unexpectedly, which had now become a major symbol of new online media. Poplar Fruit once again entered the media's field of vision because of his fun at Bali Fashion Week. However, this time he became the focus of attention all over the world. Poplar Fruit succeeded. He even changed the European and American fashion industry's perception of Chinese models. However, just when everyone thought that Poplar Fruit was a model, and should be a model, he used his actions to tell the world that his real job was as a translator, a teacher, and an academic researcher. The translations of the works of 2 consecutive winners of the Nobel Prize in Literature were handed over to him. In a year, the translation results had created a value of billions of dollars. He had personally pushed Chinese online literature to the top 100 bestsellers in the world, and started a craze for Chinese online literature all over the world. Such achievements were so dazzling that no one could pretend not to see them. Who dared to say that Poplar Fruit was not a translator? Even adding the word home to acknowledge his greatness was not an exaggeration, right? As for being a teacher, let's not talk about being a teacher in a narrow sense. Poplar Fruit was still a student, and was only an assistant. Although he had been teaching university courses for more than a year, Poplar Fruit had not reached the level of a professor, so this did not count. However, what if his contribution to remote teaching was included? Poplar Fruit's remote teaching had benefited more than 6,000 students from poor mountainous areas in Liang City. He also taught English classes from grade 1 to grade 6. The quality of his videos made all the primary school teachers feel ashamed of their inferiority. In this way, it was reasonable for more than 6,000 students from poor mountainous areas to address Poplar Fruit as a teacher. Therefore, Poplar Fruit was a teacher in a broad sense. In a narrow sense, he would definitely be an excellent professor in the future. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations. Chapter 1088. Needless to say, the academic side was even more so. Previously, the academic community had already exposed most of Poplar Fruit's secrets. The latest research on word splitting was known as a subversive theoretical discovery in Chinese education. Tung Sun's news with pictures and text allowed everyone to once again recognize Poplar Fruit and the greatness of Poplar Fruit. Perhaps, if Yanggua's achievements were placed in the historical record, it would be somewhat lacking. However, if one were to take Yanggua's age into account, which was only 25 or 26 years old, it was enough for him to look down on the majority of his peers. Including in the world, there were very few young people as talented and creative as Poplar Fruit. There were actually many geniuses, but there were not many who were as low-key and focused as Poplar Fruit. Looking at the historical illusions at home and abroad, how many geniuses fell in the pursuit of pleasure after becoming famous? However, Poplar Fruit did not. He did not lose himself in the pursuit of the media. Instead, he maintained a low-key attitude and did his own academic and public welfare work. If Poplar Fruit was still alive, China would steadily gain an academic master with unlimited potential in the future. That was the evaluation of poplar fruit by a professor at Capital University. He served as an expert judge at poplar fruit's press conference last year. People would be shocked by poplar fruit's achievements. They would be moved by poplar fruit's love for his daughter and girlfriend. They would also be surprised by the superb skills that poplar fruit suddenly showed. They would respect poplar fruit because he risked his own safety to save thousands of tourists. They would also be angrier because of the injustice that poplar fruit might have suffered. In fact, this matter was no longer China's own business. Foreign media also gave the headlines to Kunming, who had such a big incident. For the time being, regardless of the controversy that some countries showed on the definition of a terrorist attack, the leaders of many countries stood up and condemned the bloody attack. The United Nations, including Secretary-General Mr. Pan, condemned the terrorist attack on civilians in the strongest manner. Of course, there were also condolences and sympathy, but more importantly, they called for the terrorists to be brought to justice, and for the whole world to pay attention to such cruel terrorist acts. On this issue, the entire world was on the same side. The wave caused by poplar fruit was a step slower. However, the popularity of the surveillance video, the number of views on YouTube exceeded 100 million that day, was enough for people all over the world to recognize the power of poplar fruit. Some media even praised poplar fruit by using well-known kung fu stars such as Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, and Jet Li. Was this the magical Chinese kung fu? Poplar fruit was like Bruce Lee in Fierce Dragon Crossing the River, Jackie Chan in Rush Hour, and Jet Li in The Expendables. Wasn't that the case? Even when faced with an enemy who had the advantage in numbers, he still dared to charge in and out, killing the enemy until not a single armor was left. However, poplar fruit was once a celebrity that attracted the attention of the world. Through the Chinese media, the media quickly dug out the true identity of this kung fu master. All of a sudden, the whole world exploded, especially when the foreign media translated the Chinese media's report on poplar fruit's encounter. Especially the repost of Tung Sun's news, the foreign netizens exclaimed, "Isn't this the real-life version of Hulk?" Before Hulk's transformation, he was also a genius scholar who looked weak and fragile. Of course, people were more worried about poplar fruit's encounter. Was such a heroic figure still alive? Under the incitement of Tung Sun's news, the anger of the Chinese netizens, and the attention of the whole world, the Kunming police unknowingly stood on the cusp of the storm. Of course, this was their own fault. Who asked them to not give the people a clear answer? In fact, this was also caused by not paying enough attention to it. Who asked this to be a country that paid attention to the collective instead of individual heroism? Poplar fruit's incident was really too insignificant in front of the entire terrorism case. In the middle of the night, the entire Kunming and Kaiyun province's public security system was busy. They only had one goal, which was to maintain stability and eliminate violence. This included during the day when the netizens were already excited, but they were still thinking about catching the bad guys. Otherwise, they would not be able to explain to the country and the people. This idea was not wrong. It could only be said that they had not deeply realized the power of the internet. They did not realize that the era of self-media was no longer slow enough for them to respond to the information transmission speed of the traditional media. It was only when the investigation team from the central government arrived, and people who truly understood the situation came that this matter was taken seriously. Therefore, there was the scene of poplar fruit receiving a call from Yan Wanxiong. Well, it was time to attend the press conference. It seemed like the promise to have dinner with Fang Beibei and Kiki in the evening was ruined again. Poplar fruit quickly took a shower and changed into a clean set of clothes. His previous clothes were ruined and stained with blood. He had worn them all day while running around, only a jacket. After changing, Fang Beibei put them in a bag for Chen Jing to use as evidence. Poplar fruit's own clothes were also lost in the chaos and could not be found in a short time. Song Jiwen ran out to buy clothes for poplar fruit. With poplar fruit's height, it was really difficult to buy clothes for him. In the end, the clothes he bought did not fit him. Poplar fruit's casual pants were worn into cropped pants. The shirt was too short, so poplar fruit simply rolled it up and wore it as a short-sleeved shirt. As for the jacket, Song Jiwen's taste was too bad. He actually bought an extremely ugly large military cotton-padded jacket. Although Poplar Fruit was not picky, he did not want to be burned to death by the jacket. Anyway, with his physique, he did not feel cold. Thus, he went out in his summer clothes. It had to be said that as long as a person was tall and handsome, they would look good in anything. Although Poplar Fruit's clothes did not fit him well, it gave him an indescribable charm. When he entered the city hall where the press conference was held, the younger female civil servants could not take their eyes off him. This was a government press conference. Naturally, it would not be like the press conference where Poplar Fruit could do whatever he wanted. Very quickly, someone came over to communicate with Poplar Fruit. Fortunately, Poplar Fruit was upright and did not offend the other party. Furthermore, there were some things that did not allow Poplar Fruit to say. Poplar Fruit did not mind. He felt that it was better to stay out of the limelight. In the hall outside, the press conference had not yet started, but the reporters who had entered were already discussing. There was no other reason. On the rostrum of the press conference, there was a nameplate with Poplar Fruit's name written on it. That's right. Maybe the Kunming police were not lying. Poplar Fruit might really be alive. It's good that he's alive. It's good that he's alive. After the bloody incident, people's expectations couldn't be any higher. There were already reporters taking pictures of Poplar Fruit's nameplate. They could not wait to share this news with the netizens and the world. Seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendations greater than or equal to *. Chapter 1089. Poplar Fruit was sitting quietly in the side hall, waiting for the staff to inform him to go on stage. However, at that moment, a large group of people rushed into the side hall. The one leading the group was tall and had a strong aura. If one had to give an example, the only person that Poplar Fruit had seen that could compare to him was Zheng Mingsheng. However, in comparison, Zheng Mingsheng was much more refined. He seemed to have a military background, and every movement of his had the aura of a tiger. Poplar Fruit, this is Mr. Liu from the Ministry of Public Security. Mr. Liu just arrived in Kunming this afternoon, and he immediately came to ask about you. Yan Wanxiong said with a smile. Mr. Liu, nice to meet you. Poplar Fruit quickly stood up and shook hands with him, but he felt that Mr. Liu was looking at him with a strange gaze. Heroes come from the young. Mr. Liu laughed heartily and praised. Xiao Yang, thanks to you this time, the terrorist incident did not cause more serious casualties. I thank you on behalf of the country and the people. No, I was just doing what a Chinese citizen should do, Poplar Fruit said humbly. And it was also Xiao Yang who helped to provide and discover a lot of useful clues. Yan Wanxiong felt Mr. Liu's enthusiasm for Poplar Fruit, and felt a little strange. He smiled and said, thanks to these clues we were able to catch the escaped mastermind in time, and did not let him escape overseas. For this incident, Kai Yin will continue to investigate, and you will have to reflect and improve. For the security of this kind of public relations office, it's impossible to have an outstanding young man like Poplar Fruit cleaning up your mess all the time. Mr. Liu was not very nice to Yan Wanxiong. On the one hand, it highlighted Poplar Fruit's heroic image. On the other hand, it also exposed the police's lack of rapid response and the lack of awareness of the public's information feedback. It could be said that the Kunming police, and even the Chinese police, were being scolded by the people to the point that they could not lift their heads. Of course, don't forget about Poplar Fruit's contributions. After the investigation and arrest are completed, you must reward him according to his contributions, and hold him accountable. Mr. Liu instructed. Poplar Fruit definitely had nothing to do with Poplar Fruit. The people in charge of the train station and the police force would probably be in trouble. Poplar Fruit just scratched his head in embarrassment and chuckled. He was not used to this kind of bureaucratic greeting. Little Yang, why are you wearing so little? Although it's spring, it's still very cold at night, right? After Mr. Liu finished talking about Yan Wanxiong, he began to use a gentle tone to show concern for Poplar Fruit. It was a strange feeling. It was as if the tall and dignified Mr. Liu was not a high and mighty leader of the Ministry of Public Security, but an elder who cared about Poplar Fruit. Of course, Poplar Fruit did not know that because of Zheng Yujie, Zheng Mingxing had called his old friend who grew up in the same courtyard, Mr. Liu, who was now the head of the Ministry of Public Security. Mr. Liu roughly knew about the relationship between Poplar Fruit and the Zheng family. Naturally, he was a lot nicer to Poplar Fruit. However, Mr. Liu still felt that it was very strange because Poplar Fruit was not the son-in-law of the Zheng family. The whole country knew that Poplar Fruit had a girlfriend, and he was also not a descendant of the Zheng family. It was even more impossible for him to be a part of the Zheng family's power. Poplar Fruit was not involved in politics, so why would Zheng Mingxing pay so much attention to Poplar Fruit? Could it be that he was Zheng Mingxing's illegitimate son? It didn't look like it. Poplar Fruit did not know about the confused thoughts of the leader in front of him. He waved his hand and smiled. It's okay, I'm not cold. My body is quite resistant to the cold, haha. In fact, Poplar Fruit did not feel cold in the winter even if he did not wear a jacket. It was just that he did not want to be too unconventional. How can this be? Did you not find Little Yang's luggage? Arrange for a staff member to buy Little Yang a set of clothes, Mr. Liu ordered. Mr. Liu, there's no need. Poplar Fruit waved his hand and said. Yes, Mr. Liu, there's not enough time. The press conference will start in 10 minutes, Yan Wanxiong said carefully. Who said I was going to buy clothes for him to wear at the press conference? Let him change when he goes back, otherwise he will catch a cold, Mr. Liu said unhappily. Mr. Liu said angrily. Also turn up the heat in the hall. Don't let our little hero catch a cold. Poplar Fruit did not know whether to laugh or cry. It seemed that buying clothes was unavoidable. Poplar Fruit quickly stopped the staff member who wanted to go out to buy clothes. He took out the money and said, Here's the money. Sorry to trouble you. My size is. Do I need you to give me money for that? Mr. Liu waved his hand and said, This is a gift from the government. Poplar Fruit did not say anything and stuffed the money into the staff member's hand. It was about $1,000. He smiled and said, It's okay, I don't need this money. It's better not to burden the country. Suddenly, the way people looked at Poplar Fruit changed. How should they put it? Some admired Poplar Fruit, and some thought that he was stupid. Poplar Fruit did not care. He just wanted to be himself. Mr. Liu did not insist. He laughed and patted Poplar Fruit's shoulder. He said, Okay, it's getting late. Get ready. The press conference is about to start. The staff member handed over a draft about the press conference. Poplar Fruit, who had not attended the press conference, did not read it. Poplar Fruit flipped through the draft for a minute and put it aside. Mr. Liu saw it and advised, Xiaoyang, it's better to bring it with you. Otherwise, when the reporters ask later, you won't know how to answer. He was reminding him out of kindness, and his tone was like that of an elder caring. Mr. Liu's secretary, who was familiar with him, was dumbfounded. Mr. Liu, who came from the military, was known for his fiery temper. In the past, he had been scolded many times. When had he ever been treated so gently like Yang Gua? Poplar Fruit was stunned. He pointed to his head and smiled. Mr. Liu, thank you for your reminder. But you might not know this, but I have a good memory. I just read it once and memorized it. Oh, I forgot. Xiaoyang, you are a genius with a photographic memory, Mr. Liu said with a smile. The press conference began. Under the host's announcement, a line of people entered the venue. Among them, Poplar Fruit, who was at the back, attracted everyone's attention the moment he entered. Poplar Fruit was too eye-catching. Not to mention his special position in the press conference, his youthful cropped pants and shirt stood among a group of officials in suits. He was like a crane in a flock of chickens. Of course, Poplar Fruit's appearance, unscathed and in high spirits, lifted the spirits of the reporters. They excitedly raised the cameras in their hands and snapped photos of Poplar Fruit. Our hero is fine. Everything is fine. Through the live broadcast of the press conference and the rapid spread on the internet, the reporters could not wait to share the news with the world. Seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendations greater than or equal to *. Chapter 1090. The police didn't do anything wrong, Poplar Fruit didn't say anything wrong, and the netizens' criticism wasn't wrong either. There was no need to talk about this matter for the time being. Since the people involved didn't care, why should they keep talking about it? Of course, there were still some extreme netizens who would continue to argue, but there was nothing they could do about it. Fortunately, they didn't represent the mainstream perception. As long as the rational netizens who cared about poplar fruit calmed down a little, it was fine. The press conference was still going on. The terrorism case was of course still the main topic. The reporters were all asking about the origin of the terrorists, the aftermath of the casualties, and the adjustment of the terrorist response mechanism, and other important issues. In the past, the anti-terrorism deployment was mainly in the western provinces. Now it seemed that the terrorist incidents were gradually moving to the southern and eastern cities. The anti-terrorism mechanism in the cities needed to be established as soon as possible. This reminded Poplar Fruit of his big brother, Hiwanjua, who called him a few hours ago. Of course it was out of concern. However, from Big Brother Poplar Fruit also knew that the Guangdong province had already paid attention to the terrorist incident yesterday. Not only were there police patrolling the streets, but there were also special police to protect the crowded areas. The special forces that Big Brother was in were also in a state of combat readiness, waiting for orders at any time. If there was a major crisis, they would be mobilized. This wasn't an exaggeration. Who knew if these terrorists who wanted to split the country would impulsively run to Yangcheng, a big city with tens of millions of people, to cause trouble? Because it was an official press conference, Poplar Fruit didn't receive many questions. Most of the time, he was invisible, sitting on the chair next to him in a daze. Although he was in a daze, it was still a kind of quiet cool. As the press conference went on, people gradually understood what Department Head Liu meant when he said that Poplar Fruit was involved in the pursuit of the escaped terrorists. I'm not proficient in Uyghur language, but I still have a certain grasp of it. During the fight, I understood some of the terrorists' conversations and understood some of their situation. Later, the police found their lair. Due to the urgency of the situation, Director Yin asked me to go over and take a look at the notes they left behind. So I helped a little. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Yen Wanxiong did not intend to steal Poplar Fruit's credit. Besides, Department Head Liu's performance first made him want to praise Poplar Fruit even more. He took over the conversation and said with a smile, Poplar Fruit's key role is far more than that. Not only did he translate, but he also found clues to solve the case from those useless religious notes and deduced the whereabouts of the fugitive. That was how we were able to capture the fugitive in time. Although the press conference was held, many media outlets that did not have the opportunity to attend wanted to interview Poplar Fruit. However, Poplar Fruit did not intend to be interviewed. In the end, he had no choice but to accept an interview with Tungsun News. This was also the only interview he had done in Cayenne province. It could not be helped. Tungsun News had a good relationship with Poplar Fruit. In addition, New Translation Road had reached a strategic cooperation with Tungsun Literature. Therefore, Poplar Fruit was also inextricably linked to Tungsun, so he did not have the nerve to refuse. The interview with Tungsun News was very detailed. There was no need to elaborate on the details of the past 2 days. On the other hand, Tungsun News dug up some small details about Poplar Fruit that were unknown to others but that fans and audience were eager to know. Tungsun's reporter threw out a small doubt that everyone was confused about. Why did Poplar Fruit appear in Kunming? That night, the news in Liang City and Yangqing City also talked about the news of Poplar Fruit's teaching team returning home from Liang City. This was also the reason why many people thought that it was not Poplar Fruit at the beginning. I didn't come to Cayenne from Guishan. I'm really not Superman. Poplar Fruit laughed. In fact, this trip was decided a long time ago. Bei, my daughter, and my good friend decided to come to Kunming before the Spring Festival. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. As for why we chose Kunming, there are 3 reasons. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. First, Kunming is very beautiful. It's Spring City in Huacheng, isn't it? Second, my good friend met his girlfriend in Kunming. Therefore, they came together this time to walk the path of love. Poplar Fruit shrugged. He told a very romantic story calmly. The last reason is also the main reason. We chose Kunming because it's very close to Guishan province. Poplar Fruit smiled helplessly and said, In fact, the main purpose of this trip is Bebe's birthday in a few days. Every year at this time, we have to go out and play. However, every time I happen to encounter work matters, such as last year's meeting in Macau, and this year, I have to bring university volunteers to Liang City to start school with the children. Bebe has always been very accommodating to me, so last year, I spent her birthday with Kiki in Macau. This year, her birthday was chosen in Cayenne Province, which is very close to Guishan. Poplar Fruit smiled slightly. He did not know that after his explanation was announced by the reporters, many fans who were not optimistic about him and Fong Bebe in the past turned from haters to fans in an instant. There were also many audience members who did not know about him before who were moved. I've always been learning Kung Fu. I've liked it since I was young. Maybe it's because of my talent. Although most of it was self-taught, I still learned it very well. Poplar Fruit did not avoid the topic and answered Tung Sun Nu's questions about his skills. I learned my swordsmanship from an old man from the Miao tribe 2 years ago. He was a veteran who participated in the war in South Vietnam. At that time he was called a scout. Now he's called a special forces soldier. He's very skilled. I heard that he was also an existence that made the enemy tremble in fear in South Vietnam. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, in comparison, he's the real hero because he protected the integrity of the country's territory. That's why we have the beautiful life we have now. Generally, reporters would ask the Good Samaritan what he thought at that time. And Poplar Fruit was also asked this question. Scared, of course I was scared. There were 7 or 8 people on the other side. They were all armed with swords. Poplar Fruit recalled and said, but I really didn't think too much at first because my daughter, my girlfriend, and my friends were all in danger. I had to stand up and save them. In the beginning, I could still win with my bare hands because the other party underestimated me. There was also a woman among these terrorists who didn't even let children go. However, she could only be fierce to the unarmed masses. I still made her reveal her true form. Poplar Fruit smiled and said. After that, I went out to fight with the other 5 people in the hall. I knew that I couldn't beat them, but I had to go out. Because if I didn't go out, no one could stop their killing. Poplar Fruit said seriously, however, I wasn't very afraid because I was flexible. As long as I kept fighting, they couldn't do anything to me. Once I got the chance, I could get rid of the people who were alone as soon as possible. Even if I couldn't get rid of them, I thought that the crisis would be solved when the police arrived. The reporter from Tung Sun News asked Poplar Fruit if he had thought about what his future path would be after this incident. This question was a little strange to Poplar Fruit. He laughed and asked, what's the difference? That's right. To Poplar Fruit, his hero pathway was only to protect his family and save more innocent tourists. He had never thought of using this opportunity to become a celebrity or change his life trajectory. Besides, did Poplar Fruit not have many opportunities to become famous in the past? The reporter from Tung Sun News obviously understood Poplar Fruit. He did not continue to dwell on this question. Instead, he changed the topic and asked Poplar Fruit if he had any plans for literary translation this year. People were shocked by Poplar Fruit's ability to translate 2 Nobel Prize-winning scholars in 2 years. They were looking forward to seeing if Poplar Fruit would create another miracle this year. In this incident, many famous writers stood up for Poplar Fruit and questioned the Kunming police. This momentum could also see the skyrocketing influence of Poplar Fruit. In fact, Poplar Fruit did not plan to translate books for any Nobel Prize candidates this year. Instead, he planned to digest the translation work he had accumulated and add another helping hand to the promotion of Chinese online literature. The Foreign Literature Awards are all about the hard strength of the writers. If they can do it, they can do it. If they can't, they can't. It's not something that a small translation like me can affect the results, Poplar Fruit said with a smile. Everyone really thinks too highly of me. However, at the end of the day, literature still has to return to the word literature, right? Poplar Fruit ended the interview with a rather philosophical sentence. He did not continue to chat with the reporters. Kiki was still waiting for her father to tell her a story in the hotel to sleep. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations greater than or equal to *. Chapter 1091. Feng Beibei was not worried. Poplar Fruit had been called away in a hurry in the morning. In the afternoon, the leader had time to meet him, so Poplar Fruit needed to go there and wait. Fortunately, Feng Beibei and the others had prepared clothes for Poplar Fruit yesterday. After Poplar Fruit left, Feng Beibei wondered if she should take Kiki for a stroll. She had never been to the capital, although it was once the place where her father studied and worked hard. Just as she was thinking about this, Zheng Yujie knocked on the door. Sister Yujie, huh? Feng Beibei was stunned for a while and blinked her eyes. The atmosphere was a bit subtle. Ma, wait for Kiki. Kiki hasn't put on shoes yet. Kiki ran over in a panic. She heard the sound of the door opening, and thought that her mother didn't want her to go play by herself. Hearing Kiki calling Feng Beibei, Zheng Yujie's pupils, which were hidden behind the sunglasses, shrank slightly and felt a stabbing pain in her heart. It's Auntie. Kiki squeezed her little head out from Feng Beibei's feet and looked at Zheng Yujie. She giggled and said, Auntie, good morning. My papa is not at home. Kiki, good morning. The little girl's politeness made Zheng Yujie's cold expression a bit cold. She slightly raised the corner of her mouth and greeted, Auntie didn't come here to look for your father today. Feng Beibei stepped aside, pulled Kiki's hand and said with a smile, Sister Yujie, come in and sit down? Don't stand at the door and talk. Zheng Yujie nodded slightly. She took off the veil on her head and walked in, but she didn't sit down. Since you've come to the capital, I have to do my part as a host. Zheng Yujie smiled and said, Poplar Fruit isn't here, so I'll take you guys out to play today. Sister Yujie, you're so busy. I don't want to trouble you. Feng Beibei had a strange feeling in her heart. She smiled and said, I'm not busy. I've already arranged everything in Yangcheng. Zheng Yujie's red lips parted slightly as she slowly said, Moreover, it's not convenient for you to go out. I have a car, so I can take you for a ride. Sure. Kiki likes to go for a ride. Kiki likes to go for a ride in a car. Zheng Yujie's last sentence could be said to have grasped Kiki's itch. She immediately became excited and pulled Feng Beibei's hand as she jumped in joy. You guys aren't as familiar with the capital as I am. Follow me, and I guarantee that you guys will have fun. Zheng Yujie looked at Feng Beibei, her exquisite nose slightly raised under her sunglasses. Then okay. Kiki's side was in a mess, and Feng Beibei was also at her wit's end. Furthermore, Zheng Yujie had invited her so warmly, so she simply nodded her head. 20 minutes later, Feng Beibei and the others sat in Zheng Yujie's Maserati. The cool model and luxurious interior made Feng Beibei a little uncomfortable. She nervously hugged Kiki. She didn't dare to stretch her legs out, afraid that she would break something in the luxury car. Put on your seatbelt. Why are you nervous? Zheng Yujie looked at the rearview mirror, smiled and said, Poplar Fruit is the same as you. It's his first time sitting in this car, so he's also nervous. Is this car expensive? Feng Beibei asked in a low voice. It doesn't cost 10 million. Zheng Yujie shook her head and said, It's not like you can't afford it. Poplar Fruit earned more than 100 million last year. If you don't donate it, you can buy 10 Maseratis at home. There's no need to buy such an expensive car. It's good to have a car to drive. With money saved, we can do a lot of things. Feng Beibei said softly. That's right. Zheng Yujie smiled and said, However, sometimes, a woman shouldn't treat herself too badly. She should spend what she needs. It's good not to waste it, but it's unnecessary to be too harsh on herself and her family. Feng Beibei's mouth slightly pursed. She felt a little wronged. Saving money is her character, but she didn't blame Poplar Fruit for not letting him spend money. Even though Feng Beibei has been Poplar Fruit's girlfriend for so long, she has never thought of controlling Poplar Fruit's finances. Of course, Poplar Fruit didn't hide anything from her. His bank card number and password, Feng Beibei also knows everything that he knows. Including credit cards, Poplar Fruit uses the main card, while Feng Beibei uses the side card without limit. Zheng Yujie is also a clever person. Seeing Feng Beibei's expression, she didn't continue to say anything. She smiled and said, Today let's go shopping and buy some clothes. Buy clothes? Feng Beibei was a little puzzled. Yes, buy clothes. I'll buy clothes for you and Chi-Chi. Zheng Yujie said. Yesterday, I saw your eyes for choosing clothes. To be honest, I don't dare to compliment you. Today, sister will take you to change your appearance and be reborn. This is the first time Zheng Yujie called herself sister in front of Fang Beibei. Of course, the relationship between the two of them is not close to this extent. But this call of sister, Fang Beibei's barely maintained small aura was overshadowed. Fang Beibei opened her mouth, but still didn't say anything to oppose. Kiki mischievously pulled the back of the seat in front of her and happily asked, "Then can Auntie buy Kiki a pair of sunglasses as beautiful as Auntie's?" In fact, Kiki has always wanted it, but Poplar Fruit was worried that the little fellow would wear glasses so early, it would crush her beautiful little nose, so he refused to buy it for her. Of course, as long as Kiki likes it, Auntie will buy it for you, Zheng Yujie said with a smile while driving. Without waiting for Kiki to cheer, Fang Beibei rubbed Kiki's little head and asked, "Buy sunglasses, aren't you afraid that when you go back, your father will spank you?" "Afraid of what?" "If your father bullies you, you can complain to Auntie," Zheng Yujie snorted and said. "A girl should dress herself up beautifully, not to mention our Princess Kiki, right?" "Yes." Kiki's eyes curved with a smile. She has no resistance to others saying that she is beautiful and a princess. "And you?" Zheng Yujie paused and said to Fang Beibei. "Beibei, don't be angry. I have to say that you dress up beautifully, but do these clothes suit your current status?" Poplar Fruit has an endorsement deal, so most of his clothes are Givenchy, right? Zheng Yujie asked. Fang Beibei nodded. Like last night, it was Zheng Yujie who reminded them that they didn't make a mistake and directly asked Givenchy's people to send clothes for Poplar Fruit to choose. Otherwise, if Poplar Fruit went to see the #1 official in such a big occasion, Givenchy would definitely make a scene. Wouldn't that be embarrassing, Givenchy? The industry would laugh to death at Givenchy's expense. Your family can't even afford clothes? Then you and him are a couple. You wear clothes that cost a few dozen yuan, and he wears clothes that cost a few thousand yuan, Zheng Yujie said slowly. If I don't mention Poplar Fruit, he definitely won't care. But what about other people's opinions? The whole of China will be watching. The difference in the price of your clothes is so big, what will other people think of him? It seemed that Fang Beibei was convinced. Thank you to the fans at Qidian for their tips. Xiaohan, who hasn't seen tips in a long time, is so grateful. Of course, the most important thing is to thank you for your great support. Xiaohan will work hard to continue writing, although the book's results are really terrible. Chapter 1092. Poplar Fruit had heard people say that there were many hidden experts in the inner palace. Now he could clearly feel it. The guards at the door were all experts, at least as strong as Xiongda. The further he went in, the stronger the pressure of the guards. At least, Poplar Fruit had seen 5 or 6 of them, and each of them could beat Meng Sanhua to the ground. That was the case on the surface, but the real experts were hidden in the dark and in the crowd. For example, in the office of the hall, a middle-aged man with glasses was writing a manuscript. When he looked up, his eyes shone brightly. The way he looked at Poplar Fruit was no less than any martial arts expert that Poplar Fruit had ever seen. On his body, there was an aura that was different from ordinary experts. Only inner sect experts could sense it, and only inner sect experts could release it. "Kid, you're not bad." The middle-aged man smiled at Poplar Fruit. Then he hid the light in his eyes and sat back down. He continued to write his manuscript and adjusted his glasses, as if nothing had happened. Poplar Fruit's fighting spirit that had just been aroused was like a punch to the air. There was no target to receive it. Poplar Fruit scratched his head. In fact, he really wanted to spar with an expert. Only then would he know his true strength. Experts like Meng Sanhua, including the budding internal martial arts expert Liang Bin, were like underage children in front of Poplar Fruit. Unfortunately, there were too few true experts in the secular world. Or perhaps it was better to say that they hid too deeply. Xiongke was too old, and was unable to display his true strength. The old master of the Xingyi martial arts dojo cherished his reputation too much, and was unwilling to spar with Yang Guo. Thus, Yang Guo always felt that he was alone and seeking defeat. Today, he finally met an expert who seemed to be on the same level as him. Unfortunately, the environment here was special, and there was no way for him to spar. As he walked up the stairs, Poplar Fruit looked out of the window as if he had sensed something. There was nothing. He blinked in confusion and continued to walk up the stairs until he entered the waiting meeting room. The strange feeling came to an abrupt end when the door closed. He didn't know that a few people were secretly squatting on the outer eaves of this building that could be said to be the most heavily guarded building in all of China. There was only a small space to stand on. Their clothes fluttered in the wind, but they were not afraid of falling down. There were armed policemen patrolling the area. They raised their heads and looked at them. The corners of their mouths twitched, but they still walked over. If Poplar Fruit found out, he would know that they were talking about him. However, that was no longer important. Because in the eyes of these old monsters, Yang Guo is just a child. Why does it sound so familiar? At most, he was a little kid. In the future, when Yang Guo's kung fu can really surpass people's understanding and surpass all the masters, he reckoned that he would have the qualifications to talk to these old monsters. Right now he was just a young boy nervously waiting in the meeting room. Although Poplar Fruit had seen a lot of big scenes, the leader was still the leader. Poplar Fruit couldn't avoid being nervous. This nervousness was especially strong when the leader entered the room. Fortunately, the leader was very kind to him. Like an elder, he asked about Poplar Fruit's situation. Poplar Fruit thought that the leader summoned him because of his heroic actions at the train station. But Poplar Fruit was wrong. In fact, what really interested the leader, and called Poplar Fruit from thousands of miles away to Beijing, was something else. His heroic actions were just a wedge of fuse. After the leader saw the investigation on Poplar Fruit, he finally decided to meet this interesting young man with rich experience and talent that could withstand the praise of the language world. Basically, the leader asked, and Poplar Fruit answered honestly. There were two topics. One was Poplar Fruit's research on new models and methods of Chinese teaching. The other was the big deal of online literature translation that the new translation road had been working on. Although the two topics were said to be two different topics, they belonged to the same theme: the spread of Chinese culture. The central government attached great importance to the word-splitting method proposed by Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit now knew that although the research team he was in was organized by the Ministry of Education, the leader had personally asked, urged, and attached great importance to it. China has a long history and deep cultural heritage. This is a fact, but only our own people know and understand it. The leader said, when we open the door, not only do we have to let them in, but we also have to go out. The leader attached great importance to the issue of going out of Chinese culture. This could be seen from the gifts he gave to the leaders of other countries when he visited other countries. Traditional embroidery portraits, excellent domestic movies and TV series, albums of Chinese classics, and so on. All of them highlighted the excellent traditional culture of China over the past 5,000 years. If the new translation road was to let the emerging Chinese online literature go out, then the word-splitting method that Poplar Fruit was further researching and perfecting was to let foreigners see in. There was a deep gap between Chinese and English and other foreign languages. If Poplar Fruit could promote the reduction of the difficulty of learning Chinese, then he believed that it could inspire more people to learn Chinese and understand China. Of course, after the conversation with Poplar Fruit, the leader also became interested in online literature. He said that he would understand this kind of online derivative that was outside the scope of literature. There was no reason why online literature, which was popular in China and abroad, was worthless, as traditional literature scholars said. Perhaps it was time to give it a proper name. Of course, the leader attached the most importance to the word-splitting method. This was the key to increasing the value of Chinese. While encouraging Poplar Fruit, the leader also sternly urged Poplar Fruit to focus on this important matter that concerned the country and the nation. If you need anything, report to the country at any time. If anyone wants to obstruct your research, report to the country at any time. Poplar Fruit was confused by this benefit. He did not know that with the leader's imperial edict, he could almost do whatever he wanted in the country. Of course, as simple as Poplar Fruit was, he would not abuse this power to fight for anything. However, Poplar Fruit did not know that after he was received by the leader in Beijing, although the news was not reported, it quickly spread among the senior officials in the country. Poplar Fruit, although the name was very common, from today onwards, he was no longer a small figure that anyone could bully. Poplar Fruit would not feel this change at the moment, but soon, Poplar Fruit would realize how great the benefits of this meeting were. This was all in the future. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations greater than or equal to *. Chapter 1093. Poplar Fruit returned to the hotel in a daze. When he saw the number 1 leader, he still felt like he was in a dream. Opening the door, Poplar Fruit stretched and sat comfortably on the sofa. Poplar Fruit then realized that Fong Beibei and Kiki were not in the hotel. Especially Kiki, this clingy little girl did not hang around her father's neck as soon as she entered the room. Did they go out to play? It should be. Before Poplar Fruit went out in the morning, he told Fong Beibei to go out and play by herself. After sitting for a while, Poplar Fruit picked up the phone and called her. It was still early, far from dinner time. Poplar Fruit planned to look for Fong Beibei to play together. However, before the call went through, the door was pushed open. Before anyone came in, the crazy laughter could be heard. Yang Guo was dumbstruck as she saw the 3 fashionable girls walk in one after another. They wore a smooth and small fragrant dress, a classic and exquisite blue and white cheongsam, and a thin black silk suit. It was as if she was watching a small fashion show. However, what surprised Poplar Fruit was not the clothes, but Fong Beibei and Zheng Yujie were talking and laughing. It was as if they were good sisters who had just returned from shopping. Put down the clothes, let's go to Xiangshan Park. Zheng Yujie waved her hand domineeringly, and took the lead to put the big and small bags on the table. Until now, they had not noticed that Poplar Fruit was back. This was because of the angle of the room. She was wearing a pair of cute, pink, light-colored sunglasses and a fragrant long dress. She looked as pretty as a little adult, and Chi-Chi was holding her little flowery hat in her hands. She was in a very good mood. Suddenly, Kiki shook her little head with sunglasses and turned her head to see her father sitting on the sofa looking at them. She was completely unprepared and screamed in shock. "Uncle!" Kiki's cry attracted the attention of Fong Beibei and Zheng Yujie, who were talking and laughing. When Fong Beibei saw Poplar Fruit, she was surprised at first, and then she felt ashamed and angry. "Hey uncle, is it fun to hide here and scare people?" Fong Beibei bit her lower lip and stomped her feet. Her silk dress looked very similar to the splash ink style clothes that Poplar Fruit used to wear on stage. However, because it was made of light and agile silk, the different shades of black and white also appeared very charming. Especially the transparent muslin around her collarbone and waist, which made her look bold and fashionable. Poplar Fruit said with a wry smile, "I just came back and sat here. I didn't realize that you were not in the room. How could I hide from you to scare you?" As he spoke, Poplar Fruit's eyes couldn't help but look at the faintly discernible piece of white skin on Fong Beibei's waist. "How long has it been since he practiced Tai Chi internal strength, which could control his chi and blood? How long has it been since he lost control like today?" If it was outside, perhaps Poplar Fruit would be scolded as a peeping Tom. Although he had seen Fong Beibei many times, and was familiar with her body from head to toe. However, it was this kind of looming temptation that kept knocking on Poplar Fruit's heartstrings. If Zheng Yujie wore such clothes, Poplar Fruit wouldn't be curious. He would even think that Zheng Yujie was conservative. However, Fong Beibei usually dressed very conservatively. Feeling Poplar Fruit's burning gaze, Fong Beibei shyly reached out her hand to block it and asked carefully, "Isn't it too revealing?" "Revealing?" Poplar Fruit, who had been influenced by the art of fashion at Bali Fashion Week, had seen all kinds of revealing. Fong Beibei's clothes were really not considered revealing. He smiled slightly and looked into Fong Beibei's eyes and said, "How could it be? It's very beautiful." Although he didn't say it directly, the love in Poplar Fruit's eyes was clearly seen by Fong Beibei. I was the one who picked the clothes." Zheng Yujie saw that Poplar Fruit's eyes had just swept past her chest, and then were attracted to Fong Beibei's body like a magnet. Her heart was sour, and she couldn't help but snort. Was the power of love really greater? Her excellent figure was not as attractive as his girlfriend? Zheng Yujie regretted taking Fang Beibei to pick out such beautiful clothes. Fang Beibei was as beautiful as a little white flower. After putting on the new clothes, she was pure with a hint of charm. It could be said that not only Poplar Fruit, but any man would go crazy for her. Poplar Fruit heard Zheng Yujie's words. He turned his head and was about to say something when a small body suddenly squeezed into his arms. Papa, where's Kiki? Is Kiki beautiful? Kiki kept praising Fang Beibei when she saw her father, but she was ignored. Today was Kiki's most beautiful day. Like Fang Beibei, the most beautiful day must be appreciated by her father. Kiki is also beautiful. Poplar Fruit hugged Kiki and gently rubbed Kiki's bangs. Her hair was braided, and said with a smile. In fact, Poplar Fruit sighed with emotion in his heart. Today's Kiki was not only cute and beautiful, but also made Poplar Fruit suddenly realize that compared to before, the baby fat on Kiki's face had gradually faded, and the childishness on her body was also covered by the clothes. She had already become as dignified and beautiful as a big girl. Of course, Kiki was still the most lovely little thing in Poplar Fruit's heart. No matter how much the clothes looked like a little adult, it could not change the fact that Kiki was less than 3 years old. But Poplar Fruit was happy to see his daughter grow more and more beautiful, just like how he looked at Fang Beibei just now. Poplar Fruit was reluctant to look away from his daughter, and his heart was like a spring flower, blooming in spring. Poplar Fruit was so happy that he did not even care about the sunglasses that Kiki was wearing, and had been smiling happily. Hee, these are all thanks to Sister Yujie. Fang Beibei held Zheng Yujie's arm and said, Today, we went shopping all morning and bought a lot of clothes. Thinking of today's expenses, Fang Beibei stuck out her small tongue and said, It was Sister Yujie who paid the bill. She didn't let me use my card. It doesn't matter. She doesn't care about this little money. Poplar Fruit waved his hand and laughed. Alive in your eyes, is my money not money? Zheng Yujie stared at Poplar Fruit, stretched out her jade-like arm, and pointed her palm in front of Poplar Fruit and said, Return the money with interest, 50,000 yuan. After messing around for a while, Poplar Fruit let out a sigh of relief. The relationship between Fang Beibei and Zheng Yujie had improved a lot, and now he did not have to worry about it. Oh right, Yujie, today I went to see the #1 leader. He asked about the publishing house. Poplar Fruit said, and talked about today's matter. Stop. Zheng Yujie waved her hand and said, We'll talk about work when we get back to Yangcheng. Don't dawdle here. We agreed to go to the park this afternoon. Since you're back, let's go together. Go to the park. Kiki wants to go to the park with Papa. Kiki, who was a little bored, cheered, ran up to her father, and dragged Poplar Fruit outside. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 1094. On the morning of the third day after Fang Beibei's birthday, a plane from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing suddenly went missing. No one knew that the Malaysian Airlines plane, MH370, had disappeared without a trace. The rescue operation that was focused on by the entire world didn't have any results even after a few months. All 239 people on the plane, including the crew, were either lost or buried in the boundless ocean along with the plane. Perhaps people were more willing to believe that the plane had passed through a wormhole, and that the missing people were just living well in another dimension. When this incident spread out, Poplar Fruit and Fang Beibei, who had just returned to Yangcheng on the night of the 7th of March, were so shocked that they broke out in a cold sweat. At the same time, they couldn't help but feel lucky. In the face of these huge natural and man-made disasters, it was really good to be alive. In reality, the Kunming train station incident was just the beginning of a tragic year in 2014. In April, the Korean passenger ship Suizu sank into the ocean on live television, causing the deaths of over 300 passengers. This incident shocked the world again after MH370. Of course, the most heart-wrenching incident was the Kunming train station incident that endangered public safety and caused a large number of casualties. In May, there was a terrorist attack at the Urumqi train station. Not only did terrorists kill people with knives, but they also detonated bombs, causing 1 death and 80 injuries. However, just 5 days later, there was another attack at the Yangqing train station. This time, although it was in Yangqing, Poplar Fruit wasn't Superman and couldn't save the world again. However, Yangqing had already practiced a complete anti-terrorist system and subdued the bad guys in place of Superman. It only caused 6 injuries and didn't lead to any serious consequences. However, the anti-terrorist system was far from over. In Xinjiang, other than the attack at the Yuetu train station, there were 2 other terrible incidents. 2 of them were the incidents where 2 cars without license plates intentionally crashed and exploded in a downtown area, causing 39 deaths and 90 injuries. 2014 was destined to be an extraordinary year. Other than the incidents mentioned above, there were all kinds of earthquakes, plane accidents that continued to occur in the second half of the year, and the Ebola virus epidemic that affected the entire world in 2014. In the last hour of 2014, a stampede took place at the New Year's Eve on the Bund in Shanghai, causing nearly 40 deaths. Under the repeated reports of the news, it was as if 2014 was shrouded in ominous clouds. Everyone was in a state of panic. No one knew if they would suddenly meet with a mishap. It was precisely because of this series of disaster news that attracted people's attention that after Poplar Fruit returned to Guangzhou, he only accepted a few interviews that he couldn't refuse before once again withdrawing from the media's attention. Because of this, the focus of Poplar Fruit's work had gradually shifted from teaching and translating to the research of word splitting. Of course, this didn't mean that Poplar Fruit was no longer a lecturer and translator. It was just that his translations were no longer as frequent as before. At most, he would publish 1 book a month. And he would focus on translating Granny Menlo's works. This year, there were still a lot of authors begging for his help. There were even some pseudo-authors who wanted Poplar Fruit to help them translate their works through official channels. Although the school helped Poplar Fruit block most of the criticism, there were some that even Chen Zongdai couldn't refuse. Fortunately, Poplar Fruit had a death exemption card. The #1 leader instructed the Ministry of Education and the senior scholars of the research team to back him up. Poplar Fruit wasn't afraid of them threatening him. However, it would take a lot of time to perfect the word disassembly method to the point where it could be popularized. Yanghua estimated that this semester's time was barely enough. However, Poplar Fruit's performance won the praise of the scholars of the research team. If it weren't for the fact that Higashiyama University refused to let him go and Poplar Fruit didn't want to leave, there might have been another poaching storm. Poplar Fruit's translated works had decreased, but the number of books published by New Translation Road had increased. Compared to last year, New Translation Road released more than 100 new translations every month. Although the quality wasn't necessarily comparable to Poplar Fruit's translations, it was a lot better than last year. This was all because of the increase in translators. In addition to the talents cultivated by New Translation Road and Xinda Translation Platform, there were also many translators who specialized in literary translation. In the first year, people were watching, worried that New Translation Road was just a flash in the pan. However, after New Translation Road shocked the entire Chinese publishing industry with its unparalleled performance, people began to believe in the strength and vision of New Translation Road. Poplar Fruit's promotion of translators participating in the sales sharing system became an important condition to attract many excellent translators. Even though this system was unique in China, it did bring about a revolutionary impact on the traditional translation industry. New Translation Road's translators received an average annual income of 300,000 yuan through the sales sharing, and this was based on the fact that most translators' standards were not high enough at that time. This kind of income made many translators envious. They didn't hesitate to leave the publishing houses they had worked with for a long time and joined the emerging New Translation Road publishing house. This situation had a great impact on traditional publishing houses. Many publishing houses in the industry even tried to unite to block New Translation Road. Unfortunately, New Translation Road didn't follow their traditional publishing channels. The focus of their business was overseas, not in China. Their manuscript sources were very sufficient. The online literary works that had been completed before had long been bought out by New Translation Road. In the future, there would be a rich partner, Tung Sun Literature. It was a joke to block New Translation Road. Even if they used tricks, in Guangdong province, where Zheng Mingxing was covering, who could use any despicable means to his daughter. Poplar Fruit and Zheng Yujie were both fighting for their own careers, and Fang Beibei was not weak either. Although she didn't have the guidance of a senior or the help of Poplar Fruit, she considerately didn't let Poplar Fruit take time to accompany her. She drove her beetle alone. In March and April, she built a large pet hospital. In terms of hardware, the pet hospital, which cost a lot of money, had been fully renovated and equipped. In terms of manpower, the pet hospital also signed a dozen veterinarians, who were taking care of stray cats and dogs in the rescue center before opening. In the veterinary team, there were old and experienced veterinarians, as well as young people who had just graduated from school. While ensuring the stability of the team, it also retained the vitality of young people, which was very necessary for the pet hospital, the customers, and the pets. Fang Beibei had already chosen the opening time of the pet hospital. It was the third day of Kiki's birthday, which was the beginning of the May Day Golden Holiday. Before opening, Fang Beibei and Chen Anlin would study new publicity plans for the mobile internet era. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations greater than or equal to *. Chapter 1095. In the blink of an eye, it was the end of April again, the day of Kiki's birthday. Ever since Poplar Fruit celebrated her first birthday in her life, she had been counting her fingers in anticipation of her birthday every year. Because this would be her happiest day. She would have a birthday cake to eat and many, many gifts to receive. And today was Kiki's third birthday. Poplar Fruit and Fang Beibei naturally couldn't wait to prepare everything for the little fellow. Since dawn, they had already prepared a day-long birthday celebration for Kiki. Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you. With a glance from Poplar Fruit, Fang Beibei pushed open the door, and the two of them entered in a single file while singing. In the large bedroom, the rising sun warmly shone through the curtains of the floor-to-ceiling glass, and onto the silk-embroidered blanket. A delicate and cute little person had kicked off the blanket with one foot, and was sleeping in the middle of the big bed, sprawled out on all fours. Fang Beibei sang slowly, like a nightingale singing, but Poplar Fruit destroyed this beautiful scene. He always couldn't keep up with Fang Beibei's rhythm, either fast or slow. For this reason, Poplar Fruit also ate a lot of Fang Beibei's sanitary eyes floating over. However, it was also because of Poplar Fruit's existence that Kiki's long eyelashes trembled, and she finally opened her sleepy eyes. Awake! Our little princess! Poplar Fruit smiled and walked over. After sitting up with Kiki in his arms, he put a crown made of paper cards on Kiki's head. Then Fang Beibei clapped her hands hard and praised. Princess Kiki is so beautiful. Kiki was still a little confused. She rubbed her eyes and then smiled foolishly. Maybe she hadn't reacted yet, but when she heard the words birthday and princess, Kiki was very happy. Go brush your teeth and wash your face. Fang Beibei picked up Kiki and said, Ma, where's Kiki's present? After washing her face, Kiki finally recovered her spirit. Her two big eyes were shining as she asked expectantly, the present should be saved and opened together at night. This is the most interesting, isn't it? Fang Beibei said with a smile. In a while, your Aunt Zheng Yujie will come to pick you up and take you to play roller sports. Then at noon, Dad and Mom will take you to Grandpa and Grandma's house for lunch. At the dining table, Fang Beibei fed Kiki breakfast, and Poplar Fruit went through the plan for today. We'll come back to open the present at night. Then what about the present that Uncle Mosquito promised to give to Kiki? Kiki asked anxiously. Also, Brother Yuba and Sister Shanshan. Poplar Fruit laughed and said, Don't worry, they sent the present to your dad a long time ago. Dad will take care of it for you. I promise you'll open it to your heart's content tonight. However, Kiki was not happy later. This sudden situation was unexpected by Poplar Fruit. It wasn't because Chi-Chi had gotten injured while playing roller skates with Zheng Yujie. Instead, It was because she had lunch at Father Fong's and Mother Fong's house when the news on TV made Chi-Chi unhappy. The final guest list of the second season of Where Are You Going, Dad? The original 5 pairs of fathers and children have all been replaced. The new fathers are Lu Yi, Chao Ge, Huang Lei Yongwei, and Wu Zhengyu. This is almost the same as the previous list. Yes, in the blink of an eye, more than half a year had passed. The first season of Where Are You Going, Dad ended so long ago. And the second season was finally going to start again. It was reasonable to say that Kiki, who loved to see where her dad went, should be very happy. However, when she saw this news, not only was Kiki not happy, but she was so depressed that she shed tears. She could not even eat the rich lunch that her grandparents had prepared for her at noon. Kiki, tell Dad what's wrong. Poplar Fruit went upstairs, gently knocked on the door, and then walked into Fong Beibei's boudoir where Kiki was. Kiki was hiding at the foot of the bed, hugging her knees and pouting unhappily. She ran upstairs without eating 2 mouthfuls of food. It turned out that she was depressed alone. Chi-Chi was usually so happy that she didn't have a care in the world. Now that she looked so sad that she couldn't even speak. She looked just like the heart-wrenching Miss Xiaoqian in the TV series. Big Brother Kimmy isn't going. Where did Papa go? Chi-Chi twisted her fingers in front of her and pouted. Poplar Fruit smiled. He sat down next to Kiki, took Kiki into his arms with his big hands, and said, if he didn't go, where would the other children go? Maybe the children in this episode will be cuter, and the show will be more exciting. But Chi-Chi likes Kimmy Gidge a lot, Chi-Chi said with a pout as she hung onto her father's neck. It doesn't matter. Even if Brother Kimmy doesn't go, you can still see Brother Kimmy on Uncle Xiaoji's Weibo, Poplar Fruit said with a smile. In fact, after Poplar Fruit ended, Kiki often took Poplar Fruit's mobile phone to look at Xiaoji and the other Fathers' Weibo. She wanted to know what happened to the fun brothers and sisters. Also, don't you like to see where Dad goes? Kiki's mood seemed to be better, and Poplar Fruit continued to comfort her. Now that it's on the air again, you should be happy. In fact, Chi-Chi had a deeper affection for the show Where Are We Going, Daddy? Last year, when the first season of Where Are We Going, Daddy? Had ended, the little girl was crying her eyes out. That was not because of Kimmy. But if Brother Kimmy also goes on where Dad goes, then Kiki will be even happier. Kiki's analytical ability had improved a lot compared to before, so it was almost impossible for Poplar Fruit to fool Kiki. Chi-Chi, let me tell you something. Dad read an article before. It said that even if Xiaoji and Kimmy didn't make it to the second season of Where Did Dad Go? They would definitely make a guest appearance in one episode. Poplar Fruit threw out his trump card and said with a smile. So you see, there will still be a chance to see Brother Kimmy in the future, right? Really? It was only at this time that Chi-Chi's eyes finally brightened up. Poplar Fruit gently brushed Kiki's hair that flew to the corner of her mouth. Looking at her, he couldn't help but smile and nodded with a smile. In the evening, Kiki, accompanied by her parents, was ready to blow out the birthday candles. Now was the time to make a wish. Looking at his daughter, who was illuminated by the candlelight in the dark, Poplar Fruit whispered softly to Fong Beibei. Hey, I really didn't expect that my daughter is already 3 years old. And she's going to be 4 soon. You're going to be 4 soon. Fong Beibei pinched Poplar Fruit, annoyed and amused. If Kiki was going to be 4 soon, what would happen to her mother, who was just starting to be 3? I mean, I can't bear to see my daughter grow up. Poplar Fruit weakly explained to himself. On the other side, Kiki was praying devoutly. Delicious and super powerful cake god, please promise to fulfill Kiki's wish. Kiki wants to go to the party with Papa. Where is Papa going? I want to. Finally, Kiki opened her eyes and blew out all the candles on the cake. Because her father said that the wish would only come true if all the candles were blown out. What wish did Kiki make? Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. If it was easy to solve, Poplar Fruit planned to secretly give Kiki a surprise tonight. I can't tell Papa. If I tell Papa, the wish won't come true. Kiki pouted and said. Poplar Fruit was stunned. He jumped up and shouted. Boy, you little guy, you still have a secret, right? Giggle, giggle. Kiki's bell-like laughter echoed in the big house, which was once again filled with light. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations greater than or equal to asterisk. Chapter 1096. In May, the grass was long, the orioles were flying, and the flowers were blooming in the garden. People's mood was as good as the weather, sunny and cheerful. That month, other than the low-key opening of Fong Beibei's pet hospital at the beginning of the month and the high-profile promotion on WeChat and Weibo, it seemed that the month would pass by peacefully. However, at the end of the month, a person who appeared on the campus of Higashiyama University caused quite a stir. In fact, when this person came in, he was very low-key. He looked like an ordinary round-neck t-shirt, wrapped in a casual suit jacket, and a pair of nondescript jeans. In terms of clothing, he was simply a combination of a passerby and a decadent man, not to mention his naturally curly hair that didn't need to be blown, permed, or dyed. However, with such an ordinary face, he had only taken a few steps into Dongshan University's campus when he was recognized by a few girls coming from the opposite direction. Wow! Wang Shirtsong. The girls of Higashiyama University were still somewhat reserved. However, when they saw the nation's husband, they threw their reservations to the back of their minds and screamed without caring about anything else. Although the girl did not stop Wang Shirtsong, her screams and uncontrollable phone calls and announcements on WeChat immediately made the whole campus boil. Really? Where is he? Regardless of whether they believed it or not, regardless of whether they were fans or haters of the nation's husband, regardless of whether they were free or not, with the Chinese's nature of joining in the fun, the campus was immediately crowded. Wang Shirtsong was already prepared. A few strong bodyguards in black helped to protect him. He squeezed through the crowd of onlookers and slowly walked forward. Of course, with Wang Shirtsong's personality, when he walked, he still waved at the crowd of onlookers, causing many girls to scream. This rich second generation, a young master with a golden spoon in his mouth since birth, attracted a lot of haters on the internet because of his wealth flaunting and casual ridicule from time to time. But from his past statements, it could be seen that he wasn't an evil person who would run amok. Think about it, a real evil person would want to keep a low profile, so why would he repeatedly start a group ridicule mode on the internet? Looking at the words he said, I'm afraid there are many people in our lives who don't dare to say it out loud, right? On the other hand, he paid attention to the trending news on the internet, paid attention to and invested in esports, and even scolded some celebrities from time to time regardless of the consequences. These actions were actually very down-to-earth. He was not a lonely and aloof person who was some rich young master. It was precisely because of his sincerity and closeness to the people that he won the favor of many people. Of course, there was no need to talk about those idiots, regardless of gender, who only had eyes for Wang Shirtsong's father's wealth and called him their husband. Why did he come to Higashiyama University? Many people couldn't help but ask. Netizens with wild imaginations had already begun to speculate. Could it be that this nation's husband has taken a fancy to some girl from Higashiyama University? That might be the case. Wang Shirtsong's personality is straightforward, and he is also very open-minded when it comes to relationships. He has a lot of rumored girlfriends. Although he used to mainly be peripheral women, who knows if he will change his goal and aim at the talented and beautiful high school beauties. At this time, in a classroom in the teaching building, Poplar Fruit was teaching a non-boring translation theory class to the students. At the end of this class, I'll leave you with a small question. For literary translation from Chinese to English, China's famous translator, Mr. Yang Xianyi, once said that translators should try their best to be faithful to the image of the original text, neither exaggerating nor mixing in anything else. However, his wife, Ms. Dainady, believes that translators should be more creative. For example, for the translation of forward idioms, Dainady believes that there are two ways to translate them. One is to add some words that are not in the original text, and the other is to add footnotes. Then here comes the question. Poplar Fruit paused. Immediately, a student chuckled softly and asked a popular internet phrase, "Which school has the best excavator skills?" Haha. Poplar Fruit and the others laughed knowingly. Poplar Fruit waved his hand and smiled. Okay, since you brought it up, I will remember to ask you how to translate this sentence and its problems in the next class. Don't blame me for not telling you to prepare. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have caused trouble. The student's face immediately turned bitter. He knew that Poplar Fruit would definitely not let him go in the next class because he forgot. Since he said the next class, he would definitely ask him to translate in the next class. Don't underestimate this short sentence. It seemed to be easy to translate. However, in the field of literary translation, not only did they have to consider the complete translation of the original text, they also had to consider how to vividly express the sentence. Which company has the best excavator technology? Look for Lanxiang in Shandong, China. If it was just a random translation, Poplar Fruit, who had high expectations for class results, would definitely not let him go. Poplar Fruit continued, Mr. Yang and his wife's ideas can be said to represent the two major schools of translation theory, literal translation and free translation. Of course, I don't want everyone to think about how the couple fought. The students laughed. I want everyone to think about a question from the perspective of a foreign reader after class. In the translation of forward idioms, which theory is more comfortable for the reader to read? Poplar Fruit smiled and put down the chalk in his hand. He then clapped his hands and said, Okay, class is over. See you next week. Teacher, I have a question. Poplar Fruit just picked up the laptop next to him. Immediately, a few studious students surrounded him and discussed with Poplar Fruit the problems they encountered in their translation practice. This was a situation that Poplar Fruit encountered every time in class. Once they talked, it would take more than 20 to 30 minutes. Of course, he was also happy to have an academic discussion with these students with good potential. However, he did not stop and led these students to the corridor outside. 10 minutes later, there would be other teachers in the classroom. Poplar Fruit could not delay the other teachers' and students' classes. However, today, Poplar Fruit's academic discussion was doomed to be unable to continue because there was a person standing there waiting for him at the door. It should be said that there were a lot of people. The bodyguard stopped him, and there were many students behind him who were taking photos with their mobile phones. Poplar Fruit, hello, I'm Wang Shirtsong. The person came up and smiled at Poplar Fruit, who was in a daze. Then he shrugged and asked, There are too many people now. How about we find a place to talk? Wang Shirtsong? Looking for me? Poplar Fruit was indeed a little confused. He was sure that he had nothing to do with this young master in front of him. However, he was a guest, and he did not seem to have any malicious intentions. Poplar Fruit was puzzled, but he smiled and nodded. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations greater than or equal to asterisk. Chapter 1097. The nation's husband mysteriously appeared at Yangcheng University just to see Poplar Fruit? Various media outlets on the internet were already reporting on this, and some of them even quoted how Poplar Fruit and Kiki's huge fanbase called Poplar Fruit the nation's father-in-law, creating a battle between the nation's husband and the nation's father-in-law. Don't tell me he wants to marry our adorable Princess Kiki? No. Many of Kiki's fans were already imagining this scene, and yelled angrily. Of course, this was impossible. No matter how cute and beautiful Kiki was, she was still my daughter who had just turned 3. Moreover, if Wang Shirtsong dared to make such a request, Poplar Fruit would definitely beat him up so badly that even his rich dad wouldn't be able to recognize him. At this moment, in the private room of a high-class restaurant near Higashiyama University, Poplar Fruit asked in shock, What, you want to buy Ludong Zhuiyue? Yes. Wang Shirtsong looked at Poplar Fruit with sincerity, and said, I think Ludong Zhuiyue is a mobile game company with a lot of potential, and it's worth investing in. This was obviously nonsense, but it also showed his arrogance and confidence to a certain extent. Of course, the arrogance here was a compliment. After all, the company was worth hundreds of billions, which was why he used such a self-centered statement to announce his determination to buy the company. At the beginning of the year, Poplar Fruit had seen Ludong Zhuiyue's year-end report. He was a shareholder after all. Ludong Zhuiyue was no longer the poor company that had to lay off employees to survive. Using IMMT to make a name for themselves, Ludong Zhuiyue had grown into a company worth hundreds of millions after 2 years of development. Disregarding everything else, Xing Sanhu was known as a tycoon because of Ludong Zhuiyue's year-end bonus. However, Poplar Fruit really didn't care much about Ludong Zhuiyue. Other than a few times when he was the matchmaker between Ludong Zhuiyue and Blizzard, Poplar Fruit almost never asked about Ludong Zhuiyue's management. What he didn't know was that when Mercenary World went into open beta last year, and was released at the beginning of this year, the industry was already discussing the listing of Ludong Zhuiyue. The industry estimated that if Ludong Zhuiyue were to be listed, they would be able to get 100 to 200 million in financing. Moreover, Wang Shirtsong wasn't concerned about Ludong Zhuiyue's launch, but the IMMT2 that was currently in development and testing. It was rumored that the new version would have even more intricate 3D effects, and even more exciting gameplay. It was highly anticipated even before it was released. So, do you think this company is worth investing in? Wang Shirtsong said with a smile. He didn't hide his thoughts at all. If I were to acquire Ludong Zhuiyue, I wouldn't let it get listed so quickly. I would invest more and develop more fun mobile games. Right, you've heard of Lutu Games, right? Wang Shirtsong saw Poplar Fruit shake his head in confusion. He passed his phone to Poplar Fruit and pointed at the games on the screen. Here, the games under this directory, Fruit Ninja, Angry Birds, and so on, are all their games. Theirs. Poplar Fruit looked at Wang Shirtsong suspiciously. Wang Shirtsong laughed awkwardly and admitted, "Alright, they're not theirs, but they're the general manager." In order to salvage the situation, Wang Shirtsong said, "You've seen it for yourself, this company owns a lot of game rights. Moreover, it will be listed in the US in 2 months. If Ludong Zhuiyue has my connections, I'm sure they'll be able to learn a lot from Lutu Games, such as making other types of mobile games, or getting listed to make money." He didn't try to hide it and directly used the word make money. However, Poplar Fruit didn't care about that. He asked curiously, "Mr. Wang, why are you telling me about Lutu Games? Since you already have Lutu Games, why do you still want to acquire Lutu Games?" Wang Shirtsong blushed and laughed. "Actually, Lutu Games isn't mine. I only bought 3% of the shares. It's not much, not much." Yang Guo rolled her eyes. She knew that this young master couldn't make any money from Lutu Games, so he set his sights on Liudong Joyo, which had more potential and was developing independently. "Poplar Fruit, don't call me Mr. Wang." Wang Shirtsong tried to get close to him and smiled. "We're the same age and I'm only a few months older than you. Call me Brother Wang." Poplar Fruit suddenly remembered his funny Weibo profile, a low-key internet celebrity, Little Wang. Just thinking about it made him want to laugh. "Alright, Brother Wang, I want to ask, why are you looking for me to acquire Lutu Games? The major shareholder is Uncle Hu Third Tiger Xing. What's the point of buying my shares?" Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. "Third Tiger Xing doesn't want to sell it, so I can't do anything about it." Wang Shirtsong frowned and said, "So, I can only look for you. I don't need the controlling shares. I just want to invest some money, and then when Third Tiger Xing gets the company listed, I'll make a profit from this investment." He didn't care how much he made. This investment was mainly for others to see, to prove that he, Wang Shirtsong, wasn't stupid with too much money. He could make a lot of money. Poplar Fruit couldn't help but think. Wang Shirtsong ran over to Poplar Fruit and sat down next to him. He smiled and said, "How about it? Poplar Fruit, think about it. Anyway, it's useless for you to have 20% of the shares. You can still get some money if you sell it. Isn't your charity fund almost out of money?" Poplar Fruit glanced at him. In fact, he didn't find it strange that Wang Shirtsong knew so much about Poplar Fruit. The media had already exposed the matter of Ludong Zhuiyue's shares, and the charity fund's accounts were posted online. They were updated at any time, and anyone could see them. What he cared about was Wang Shirtsong saying that the charity fund was almost out of money. Yes, the charity fund really didn't have much money left. Don't underestimate the amount of money that was close to 100 million. Apart from Poplar Fruit's money, there was also a lot of donations after the train station incident. In fact, it wasn't enough to spread out across the country. Moreover, the country wasn't as big as it was now, Because this year, after Poplar Fruit's news was broadcasted again, more officials learned about Poplar Fruit's charity work. There were already many provincial officials from Guishan Province and Xiangnan Province who came to Guangdong Province to learn and seek support. Zheng Mingsheng also ordered Guangdong Province's Department of Education and Poplar Fruit's charity organization to start preparing. That was the long-distance teaching of two big provinces, compared to the small Liang city, who knew how many more poor students there were. If they waited until all the policies and funds were implemented during the summer vacation, then it was estimated that more than half of the students wouldn't be able to get the help of long-distance education in the next semester. Therefore, Poplar Fruit asked Fat Dragon and Kai Simin to start using the charity fund to prepare personnel and equipment. When the state's policies and funds were released, they could move more quickly. But now it seemed that the 100 million charity fund was just a drop in the bucket. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations greater than or equal to asterisk. Chapter 1098. Poplar Fruit was short of money now, really short of money. The 100 million in the fund account was about to be used up, and Poplar Fruit only had a few million left in his bank account. He wouldn't touch the Poplar Fruit because he wanted to save it for Fong Beibei's emergency use. Moreover, even if he threw in a few million, it would only be a drop in the bucket. However, Poplar Fruit wasn't in a hurry, because last month's royalties were coming soon. He could still hold on for a while. If he really couldn't, he could borrow a few million from Zheng Yujie to get through it. Zheng Yujie just didn't know. If she knew, she might not even need to borrow and just put the money into his account. However, Poplar Fruit still didn't want to trouble Zheng Yujie, unless it was absolutely necessary. Poplar Fruit owed this girl too much. He probably wouldn't be able to repay it even in his next life. If you're willing to sell, I'll ask my dad to donate 100 million to your charity fund in addition to the money used to buy the shares. Wang Shirtsong once again threw out a trump card. A trump card that was infinitely tempting to Poplar Fruit. In fact, the Wang family did a lot of charity activities every year. Doing charity meant throwing money into the water, and they might not even be able to get their reputation back. In that case, it didn't matter who he donated it to. Instead of donating it to the Red Cross Scourge, it was better to do something good for Poplar Fruit. Moreover, the charity that Poplar Fruit did was transparent and fair, and it was the focus of the whole country. This was many times better than the Red Cross. Poplar Fruit was silent for a moment. This time he was really tempted, but Poplar Fruit couldn't give an answer immediately. I need to discuss it with my friends, Poplar Fruit said slowly. Poplar Fruit wasn't a businessman. If he was, he could make the decision himself. But he wasn't. There were many things he didn't understand, but Poplar Fruit had a lot of people he trusted. Wang Shirtsong was a little disappointed, but he still had hope. Thus, he stood up and stretched out his hand with a smile. No problem, I'll stay in Yang City for a few days and wait for your reply. Okay. Poplar Fruit nodded and shook his hand. I'll contact you as soon as possible. Before leaving, Poplar Fruit took away the business card that had been placed on the table from the beginning. When he was talking to Xing Sanhu, Poplar Fruit had already divided the 20% shares into half for himself and half for Fong Beibei. Even though Fong Beibei was unwilling to take it back then, and even though Fong Beibei was now one of his people and Poplar Fruit was the head of the family, when faced with this kind of problem, Poplar Fruit still chose to discuss it with Fong Beibei first. I don't have any objections, uncle. You can make the decision yourself. Fong Beibei shook her head and smiled. I have an objection. Suddenly, a clear voice squeezed in. Poplar Fruit turned his head and looked at the troublemaking Kiki. He smiled and hooked his finger at her. Hee Gold Run. Papa is angry. I'm going to spank you. Chi-Chi laughed mischievously and ran upstairs with gold to play with. I really want to sell it. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and said, but I'm a little worried if I'm being immoral. Fong Beibei stuck out her tongue and smiled. I don't understand. Why don't you ask Sister Yujie? She should know better. Poplar Fruit nodded and called Zheng Yujie. If you want to sell it, then sell it. What are you hesitating for? You're not involved in the game industry. What's the point of keeping a game company's shares? Zheng Yujie asked. Anyway, it's quite valuable now. If you sell it earlier, who knows when they'll suddenly lose money? Poplar Fruit said with a bitter smile. It's not good to curse others like that, right? I'm not lying. The mobile game market is too hot now, too many bubbles are inflating together, and many small companies are in a precarious situation. Who knows when they'll be swallowed up by the big fish? Zheng Yujie advised. It's good to sell it while it can still be sold. The problem is this really good? When Uncle Hu gave me the shares, it was because he trusted me. If I sell it rashly, wouldn't it be bad for him? Poplar Fruit asked doubtfully. You're too kind. Business is business. What's there to be conflicted about? Zheng Yujie sneered. Sigh, I really don't know what to do with you. Zheng Yujie shouted from the other end. Just ask Xing Sanhu. If he doesn't mind you selling it, then sell it. If he does, then tell him that he can buy it back at 10% of the market price. 10%. Poplar Fruit scratched his head. Will Uncle Hu be willing? Yes, 10%. Didn't you just say it? Wang Shirtsong is 8%? Plus 100 million in donations. Zheng Yujie snorted and said. We're giving him a chance to buy it back. If he's not willing, then we'll sell it to Wang Shirtsong. Poplar Fruit hesitated for a moment, but still nodded. Zheng Yujie was right. 10% was already the best he could do. In comparison, Poplar Fruit had sacrificed a lot. Poplar Fruit didn't wait until the next day. After doing some research at night, he gave Xing Sanhu a call. Xing Sanhu was still working overtime. IMMT2 was about to be released. This was the most important project for Ledong Zhuiyue, and Xing Sanhu had to keep an eye on it. Poplar Fruit, I knew this day would come. Xing Sanhu smiled after listening to Poplar Fruit's explanation. To be honest, having a shareholder like Poplar Fruit was a blessing for Ledong Zhuiyue and Xing Sanhu. In this world, how many people could be like Poplar Fruit, taking 20% of the company's shares without interfering with the company's affairs, and even giving money and connections to help the company achieve success? No, people like that only existed in ancient times. That was called Mao Zedong. Xing Sanhu sighed, not because of Poplar Fruit's decision to sell the shares, but because it seemed like Ledong Zhuiyue was finally going to part ways with Mao Zedong. Sorry, Uncle Hu, I'm really short on money. Poplar Fruit said to Xing Sanhu regretfully. But if you don't want to, you can buy back the shares. Just like Wang Shirtsong, 8% above the market price would be fine. In the end, Yangguo's heart softened. In the end, he couldn't bear to cheat his friend. No need, Xing Sanhu smiled. You can sell it to Wang Shirtsong. Just like you said, Ledong Zhuiyue needs to develop further. A senior like Ledong Zhuiyue is someone Ledong Zhuiyue needs to learn from, isn't that right? The development of a company could not always be done by a single shareholder. It needed more say, financing and technical support, so that it could improve faster and faster. In the past, Ledong Zhuiyue was a little timid, and Xing Sanhu let go of many opportunities, even better than Wang Shirtsong's. But this time, Xing Sanhu decided to change. He didn't need a Mao Zedong like Poplar Fruit, he needed a wolf that could motivate the company to move forward. The next day, Wang Shirtsong and Poplar Fruit reached an agreement. After signing the contract, Wang Shirtsong patted Poplar Fruit's shoulder and said, Poplar Fruit, Brother Wang will remember this favor. From now on, we're brothers. On the third day, Wang Shirtsong announced on Weibo that he had invested in Ledong Zhuiyue, and that the Wang family would donate 100 million RMB to the remote teaching charity fund. While the internet was discussing Wang Shirtsong's investment, the mobile game industry was shocked. The wolf is here. Looking for monthly votes, looking for recommendations greater than or equal to *, that you're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.